Welcome to AI Otaku Studio. Like, subscribe, and enjoy this video. Chapter 1, Dragon God Douluo Xiaogang, Heavenly Curtain descends. In Douluo continent, within a simulated training ground of Spirit Hall rich with the aura of light. 2. A giant dragon, like a small hill, lay prone on the ground. A dull yet not unpleasant sound of breathing emanated from its body. Dazzling golden scales were neatly arranged on its body, each scale seemingly reflecting 10,000 rays of light. Although the giant dragon was currently sleeping, the aura it exuded was not weak at all. Any spirit master or spirit beast slightly weaker would likely be stunned unconscious by this powerful dragon pressure the moment they approached it. Yet beneath this dragon pressure, a tall, upright figure sat quietly on the ground. His long golden hair was simply tied behind his head. With sword-like eyebrows, star-like eyes, and a straight nose bridge, his face carried a heroic yet resilient air that made one fall deeply into it at first glance, unable to extricate themselves. Compared to the giant dragon, this figure was exceptionally small, not even comparable to one of the dragon's claws. However, the pressure radiating from his body was of the same origin as the dragon's, as if the two were one. Suddenly, the man sitting quietly opened his arms. The spirit power within his body surged like a gale, absorbing all the surrounding light into his body. In an instant, the surroundings seemed to fall into a dark abyss. The moment this disturbance occurred, several figures arrived at the edge of the training ground. Seeing the scene within the training ground, they were shocked. Big brother, he is about to become a god. The second elder of the Elder Hall, God Douluo, could not help but look at the grand elder of the Elder Hall, God Douluo, beside him. As the only two rank 99 titled Douluo present, and with one having caused this anomaly, they could only ask the other to resolve their confusion. Eyes do not know. Meeting everyone's gaze, God Douluo shook his head. He was rank 99, although there was only a one-level gap to reaching level 100 and becoming a god. This one level hid too many things he did not know. Xiaogang. In the crowd, Bibai Dong, dressed in a gorgeous long dress, gazed at the scene in the training ground with anticipation. If it weren't inappropriate right now, she probably would have rushed in already. While everyone waited, it didn't take long for the darkness of the simulated training ground to gradually vanish, and light shone upon the ground once more. At the same time, Xiaogang, who was cultivating while seated on the ground, opened his eyes and slowly stood up. Sensing the power within his body, Xiaogang clenched his fists, satisfied. Not bad, I've taken another step forward. It won't be long before I can engrave the light onto my entire body. By then, even a first-class god will be a match for me. Xiaogang was full of confidence. The god position legacy doesn't look favorably upon me. Then I will surpass the gods with my own power. Xiaogang. Just as Xiaogang was thinking about becoming a god, a voice filled with excitement suddenly rang out. Upon hearing this voice, the expression on Xiaogang's face softened significantly. He opened his arms, allowing the other person to throw herself into his embrace. Feeling the warmth of the beauty in his arms, Xiaogang sighed with emotion. His life in this world could be considered complete. Ahem, if you two want to be intimate, do it later. For now, tell us old guys what exactly is going on. God Douluo, watching the two being lovey-dovey, couldn't help but cough twice, interrupting their intimacy. High Priest, it is still the method for becoming a god that I mentioned before. Today, I made some breakthroughs. Xiaogang briefly explained the situation. You actually haven't given up. Can that method really allow one to become a god? God Douluo looked at Xiaogang with some surprise. The gods of Douluo continent are nothing more than powerful humans. Therefore, as long as one finds a way to increase their strength, becoming a god is not difficult. The truly difficult part is the process of exploring this path. Xiaogang sighed. Recalling his life, it seemed he was always treading these difficult paths. Just as everyone was preparing to continue their discussion, suddenly, a humming sound that seemed to come from everyone's hearts rang in the ears of everyone across the entire Douluo continent. Immediately after, a pitch-black heavenly curtain appeared in the sky. No matter where one was, as long as they looked up at the sky, they could see this screen. What the hell is this? God Douluo narrowed his eyes, looking up at the heavenly curtain in the sky. Could it be the spirit ability of some powerhouse? The third priest, AI Douluo, guessed. Not sure, let's wait and see. God Douluo said very calmly. Given the situation of their spirit hall, unless a god descended, they feared no danger. Soon, the pitch-black heavenly curtain began to change, and text that even illiterate people could understand appeared on the screen. Heavenly curtain manifested, detected the existence of a parallel world, now conducting a dual Douluo comparison. Specific information has been transmitted to the minds of the audience. The objects for comparison will be drawn shortly. After the text on the heavenly curtain appeared, information regarding parallel worlds surfaced in everyone's minds. Hiss, another identical Douluo continent, only it's possible that because of someone's choice, the world has undergone a huge transformation. The fourth priest, Lion Douluo, gasped. There was no helping it. The information transmitted to them by the heavenly curtain was simply too much. They found it hard to believe that in another world, there existed another version of themselves. Big brother, do you think in this parallel world, it's possible that I am the high priest? Gold Crocodile Douluo pondered for a moment, then came to God Douluo's side and asked. What? Want to see the scene where I call you big brother? God Douluo asked with a smile. Just tell me if it would be interesting if such a world actually existed. Gold Crocodile Douluo responded with a laugh as well. On the other side, Bibaidong also looked at Yu Xiaogang with curiosity. Xiaogang, do you think that in the parallel world, we two can still be together? Upon hearing this, Yu Xiaogang raised his hand to rub Bibaidong's head and said, annoyed. Even if we can't be together, what does that have to do with us? We are together. Hearing Yu Xiaogang's words, Bibaidong hugged Yu Xiaogang tightly with a look of happiness, and Yu Xiaogang hugged her back. However, while holding Bibaidong, he couldn't help but think of the original Douluo continent work he had learned about through various clips before his transmigration. As a transmigrator, Yu Xiaogang had not read the complete Douluo continent novel or watched the anime. His understanding of this novel was still at a very basic stage. Even so, he knew some key information. For example, the protagonist Tang San, the protagonist's Team Shrek, and the villain organization Spirit Hall. And for instance, Tang San's trash teacher, Yu Xiaogang. So when he first transmigrated and learned he had become Yu Xiaogang, he was extremely panicked. Fortunately, before transmigrating, Yu Xiaogang could be considered well-read. Combining his ideas from before the transmigration with his study of the Douluo system, he successfully defied the heavens and changed his fate. Now that he thought about it, his life after transmigrating to Douluo continent could be considered magnificent. I just don't know who this comparison will be between, if it compares me with the original Yu Xiaogang. Thinking of this, Yu Xiaogang shook his head and laughed. If they were really compared, it would probably drop everyone's jaws. And things seemed to happen just as one thought of them. No sooner had Yu Xiaogang's thought passed than the heavenly curtain selected the candidates for comparison. First comparison objects: Black World Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang, White World Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang. Chapter 2: Reaction of the Original World, Yu Xiaogang's Breakdown. Black World. The light screen hung in midair as well, and information about the parallel worlds appeared in everyone's minds. Spirit Hall. Teacher, do you think in a parallel world, there might be a situation where I didn't join the Spirit Hall? Huliana, hailed as a member of the Spirit Hall's golden generation and a disciple of Bibaidong, looked at her teacher. Perhaps, Bibaidong replied, but Huliana could clearly sense her teacher's perfunctoriness and distraction. Thus, Huliana was curious about what her teacher was thinking at this moment. In fact, Bibaidong was indeed thinking about many things. She thought of the past that had led her to where she was today, step by step. If I had successfully left the Spirit Hall with Yu Xiaogang back then, or if I hadn't even joined the Spirit Hall at all. Bibaidong constantly fantasized about all this in her heart. On the other side, 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Uncle Jian, Uncle Gu, do you think in this parallel world, there might be a case where I successfully evolved the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda into the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda? Ning Fengzhai looked at the sword Douluo and bone Douluo beside him. It could only be said that Ning Fengzhai harbored a deep obsession with the 9-treasure glazed tile pagoda. When he heard the heavenly curtain mention parallel worlds, this was the first thing that came to his mind. It should be possible. If such a situation really exists, then Fengzhai, perhaps you could use the other's situation as a reference. The bone Douluo said after a moment of thought. Exactly, if there really is a successful evolution, we can use it as a reference. Ning Fengzhai's eyes lit up. He suddenly felt a deep sense of anticipation for the upcoming comparison video. On another side, Shrek Academy. Teacher, if there is a comparison, what kind of scene would you like to see? Tang San looked at Yu Xiaogang beside him. Now that the Shrek 7 devils had assembled, combined with his teacher's arrival, Tang San was full of confidence in the future at this moment. He didn't think there were any better choices he could have made. So rather than himself, he was more curious about the situations of others. I have nothing I want to see, because life changes based on different choices. Such a comparison is completely meaningless. Yu Xiaogang shook his head indifferently. Actually, the moment he learned about the concept of parallel worlds, Yu Xiaogang thought of himself. His own life could be called a tragedy. As a member of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, one of the upper 3 sects, and the son of the sect master, Thunder Douluo Yu Yuanjin, his status was quite illustrious. However, his prominence only lasted until his martial soul awakening. On that day, the malignant mutated spirit Liu Sanpao and a half-rank of innate soul power destroyed everything he had. He became the shame of the sect, mocked by others, and a lifelong stain on his father's reputation. Subsequently, Yu Xiaogang tried to unearth the potential of Liu Sanpao through continuous research, but with his talent being what it was, he was ultimately destined to be stuck at rank 29 for life. Thinking back on the efforts he had made in the first half of his life, Yu Xiaogang believed his choices had been perfect, yet his talent had limited him. Otherwise, he would never be in his current state. He was confident that even in parallel worlds, not every version of himself could reach his level. Perhaps those other versions of Yu Xiaogang were still stuck at rank 9 or 19. Being able to reach rank 29 was already considered a heaven-defying change of fate for Liu Sanpao. All right, there's nothing to see here. With me designing your training plans, your future choices will certainly not go wrong. Just like me, the choices I made at every turning point in my life were perfect. If I were to be compared, only worse situations would appear. Yu Xiaogang stood confidently before the Shrek 7 devils, looking at these talented youngsters, especially his disciple, Tang San. Even after doing his absolute best, he could only reach this point, being regarded as trash by everyone. So he would cultivate an invincible disciple to prove himself to everyone. However, what Yu Xiaogang didn't expect was that in the next second, the first comparison subject appeared. First comparison subject: Black World Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang, White World Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang. Seeing the words on the heavenly curtain, the Shrek 7 devils, along with Flender, Zhao Wuji, and other teachers of Shrek Academy watching from the side, all focused their gaze on Yu Xiaogang at this moment. Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang, Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang. Undoubtedly, Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang was from their world, while the Yu Xiaogang of the other world had become a titled Douluo with the domineering title of Dragon God. One could only imagine his strength. Thinking back to what Yu Xiaogang had said just a few seconds ago. The choices I made at every turning point in my life were perfect. If I were to be compared, only worse situations would appear. The slap to the face came so quickly that no one could react in time. A deathly silence hung over the training ground. No one knew how to respond. Until a very faint sound of suppressed laughter came from among the Shrek 7 devils, instantly drawing everyone's attention. Seeing that it was Ning Rongrong, the young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school, everyone understood. Only she would be able to laugh at a time like this. Hearing the laughter, Tang San frowned and looked gloomily at Ning Rongrong. This person who dared to mock his teacher, if she weren't his current companion, she would already have a way to court death. Impossible. And Ning Rongrong's laughter seemed to flip the switch on the frozen training ground. The first to burst out in doubt was Yu Xiaogang himself. Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang, how is that possible? My choices have been perfect, and my research on spirits is unrivaled in the Douluo continent. If even I can't break through rank 30, which other version of me could break through to become a titled Douluo? This must be a lie. Yu Xiaogang pointed at the heavenly curtain, his eyes bloodshot, breathing like a bull, constantly spitting out impossible. At this moment, he had already labeled the heavenly curtain as a deceptive scam in his heart. He even felt it was some spirit master's spirit ability used to smear him. Xiaogang calmed down first. Flender came to Yu Xiaogang's side, supporting his friend's body. Maybe it's just someone with the same name, or perhaps there's some other reason. Right, teacher, we all know your talent. If even you can't do it, who else could? Tang San also came to Yu Xiaogang's side to comfort him. Tang San's comfort was very effective, and Yu Xiaogang soon calmed down, though his gaze became even gloomier. Tang San's eyes darted around as if he had thought of something, and then he spoke. Teacher, the heavenly curtain said that someone's choice caused everything to change. Perhaps it wasn't you who changed, but your parents. Maybe they consumed some herbs, or did something that changed your talent in that world. Yes, perhaps it was my father and mother who changed. In that world my spirit wasn't Liu Sanpao, and my innate soul power wasn't half a rank. Yes, it must be so. Hearing Tang San's words, Yu Xiaogang immediately accepted this conjecture. He was even certain that the Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang might have had full innate soul power from the start. Only then could he have achieved the rank of titled Douluo. Thinking of this, dissatisfaction with this world immediately surged in his heart. Damned heavens, why is it that even though we are the same person, another can have full innate soul power while I am like this? Chapter 3: Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang's life before age 6. Aside from Yu Xiaogang himself, anyone who knew his specific situation, such as his father Yu Yuanzhen, the sect master of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, couldn't help but show expressions of disbelief as they watched the character being compared. The impact this title brought them was simply too great. A waste they knew well had actually become a titled Douluo in another world. The gap between the two was no exaggeration to describe as the difference between heaven and earth. Thus, even though the heavenly curtain had not yet begun its broadcast, everyone was already starting to look forward to exactly how that Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang had changed his fate against the heavens. Soon the images began to play. Now broadcasting Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang. A certain courtyard within the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Wah! Accompanied by a cry, a newborn infant arrived on the Douluo continent. His father Yu Yuanzhen named him Yu Xiaogang with an excited heart. As the son of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect master, and the son of the sect's only titled Douluo, Yu Xiaogang was highly anticipated by everyone in the sect from the moment of his birth. The elders were pleasant and kind when they saw Yu Xiaogang, the powerhouses of the sect were respectful, and the members of the younger generation constantly tried to curry favor with him. It could be said that at that time, Yu Xiaogang was the absolute core of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Watching the elders being kind to him, the family powerhouses being respectful, and the younger generation currying favor in the images, Yu Xiaogang's fists clenched tight at this moment, his eyes becoming bloodshot. What could be a more bone-deep mockery than such images? After all, who on the entire Douluo continent didn't know what the young boy, loved by the entire Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect in the images, would become in the future? Beside him, Tang San watched Yu Xiaogang's trembling body and glanced at the heavenly curtain with cold, dark eyes. I don't know which powerhouse is behind this, but you already have a way to seek your own death. Being favored and loved by everyone, Yu Xiaogang naturally developed an arrogant attitude. He took the elders' kindness for granted, and even though he hadn't awakened his spirit yet, he unceremoniously accepted the respect of the family's powerhouses. As for the younger generation's attempts to please him, he directly showed disdain. In his view, as the son of a titled Douluo, he would surely become a top powerhouse of the sect in the future and make a name for himself across the Douluo continent. Those who could befriend someone like him had to be geniuses. Therefore, for those who wanted to curry favor with him, he wouldn't even give a proper look to anyone whose innate soul power was below level 7. Seeing Yu Xiaogang's attitude toward those trying to please him, the Douluo continent erupted into a frenzy everywhere. Good grief, he won't even look at someone with innate soul power below level 7. Then people like us with level 2 or 3 aren't even worthy of appearing before him. He is the son of a titled Douluo after all. If you had a father like that, you'd probably be even more arrogant than him. Pa, what a joke, I know this guy. He's a waste at level 29 who can't break through to level 30. I don't know where he gets the nerve. Can't break through level 30, how is that possible? His father is a titled Douluo. So what, martial soul awakening, doesn't care if you're the son of a titled Douluo or not. Tusk, interesting. He's so arrogant now. After his martial soul awakening, won't those he looked down on mock him to death? Later, the members of the sect saw Yu Xiaogang's attitude toward them. Although some were dissatisfied, they ultimately said nothing because of Yu Yuanzhen. When he reached the age to learn to read and write, under the arrangement of his father Yu Yuanzhen, Yu Xiaogang began to study knowledge related to spirit masters. Yu Xiaogang was very interested in this knowledge, especially things like spirits and spirit rings, which often triggered his deep thinking. Why must the family's blue lightning tyrant dragon spirit use this specific spirit ring ratio? Would it be better if we swapped them for spirit rings from other spirit beasts? Yu Xiaogang's questions left Yu Yuanzhen between laughter and tears. The spirit ring combination for the blue lightning tyrant dragon spirit was the optimal pairing determined through countless years of family accumulation and the efforts of many people. By relying on this set of spirit ring ratios, the blue lightning tyrant dragon sect could stably produce powerhouses. This was the advantage of a family sect. As for those scattered spirit masters without backgrounds, their spirit ring acquisition was entirely dependent on luck if they didn't have professional guidance, and they had no idea what spirit abilities they would get. Many spirit masters, who clearly had decent talent, ultimately failed to achieve much because of this reason. Looking at his son's confused expression, Yu Yuanzhen just smiled and brushed him off, not explaining the details to him. In his view, as his son, Yu Xiaogang would have him to oversee things. He wouldn't be like those scattered spirit masters who chose the wrong spirit rings and delayed their path to becoming stronger. Do you understand now, little San? This is why I told you to listen to your teacher more when acquiring spirit rings. Only someone with rich experience can arrange your future path and prevent you from going astray. Never underestimate the acquisition of spirit rings. They relate to your future and your entire life, so in this regard, not a single mistake can be made. Yu Xiaogang looked at his father's smile on the heavenly curtain, suppressed the resentment in his heart, and turned to instruct Tang San. On the other side, within the Supreme Pontiff Palace of Spirit Hall, Bibi Dong looked at the still young Yu Xiaogang on the heavenly curtain, her expression becoming somewhat dazed. So you had already begun researching spirits from such a young age. It's just a pity that the entire Douluo continent is full of blind fools. Bibi Dong recalled the Yu Xiaogang, who had come to Spirit Hall to study in the library years ago, and a deep longing for him arose in her heart. In the sect Master's Room of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, Yu Yuanzhen also felt a sense of helplessness as he watched the young Yu Xiaogang on the heavenly curtain. He had planned out the path for Yu Xiaogang, but unfortunately, because of the boy's spirit, everything had come to naught. Precisely because of this, Yu Yuanzhen was even more curious about the situation of the Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang, who was being compared to his son. An identical Douluo continent, yet simply because of one person's choices, things have undergone such a massive change. So, exactly what kind of choice could allow Xiaogang to become a titled Douluo? Yu Yuanzhen was curious. Of course, his thoughts were actually similar to Tang San's earlier. He assumed that some influence from himself or his wife had allowed Yu Xiaogang to awaken a higher level of innate soul power, which was what caused such a massive change. If it wasn't that Yu Xiaogang's innate soul power had changed, Yu Yuanzhen couldn't imagine what kind of heaven-defying choice could possibly lead his son to become a titled Douluo. The video continued. Soon, time reached the year Yu Xiaogang was 6 years old, and he was about to undergo his martial soul awakening. Chapter 4 Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang, Manifest My Spirit. Time passed until the year Yu Xiaogang turned 6, and the day of the martial soul awakening arrived. On this day, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect invited many guests to witness the ceremony, including affiliated sects of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, members of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School and Clear Sky sect from the upper 3 sects, and guests from the lower 4 sects. Spirit Hall even sent a titled Douluo to observe, showing how much importance everyone placed on this awakening. The main reason for such attention was that Yu Xiaogang, the son of the Thunder Douluo Yu Yuanzhen, the only titled Douluo of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, was also in the lineup for this martial soul awakening. Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. HMPH, even now, thinking back to the scene from that year still feels shameful. The Grand Elder of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect snorted coldly. Indeed, we thought it would be the debut of the next sect master, but it turned out like that. The second elder shook his head. It seems that since then, our Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect has never held a grand awakening ceremony again. How could we? Our faces were completely lost. Not only the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School and the Clear Sky sect, but even Spirit Hall and the lower 4 sects watched us make a fool of ourselves. I dare say that even now, there are still people using that incident to mock us. Sigh, now that this heavenly curtain is reenacting the scenes from back then, we are going to be ridiculed again. Later, the angry voices and sighs of the elders rang in his ears. As the sect master, Yu Yuanzhen sat in the center, his face ashen, but he had no way to argue. The events of that year had indeed dealt a heavy blow to the reputation of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. More importantly, they had no way to reclaim the face they had lost afterward. Forcing down the anger in his heart, Yu Yuanzhen looked at the heavenly curtain. Dragon God Douluo, just how did he achieve that? All the guests gathered together. Under everyone's gaze, Yu Xiaogang held his head high, his face brimming with a proud smile. He cast a disdainful glance at the children behind him who were about to awaken their spirits with him, and was the first to step forward alone. Looking at his high-spirited son, Yu Yuanzhen was also beaming with joy. Brother Yu, I heard your son Yu Xiaogang has already begun researching spirits at a young age, and has his own insights into them. Is this true? The previous sect master of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School looked at Yu Yuanzhen, his words clearly meant to flatter. Ha ha ha, he just has some shallow insights, it's nothing, for a spirit master's. What truly matters is our own strength. Yu Yuanzhen replied with a smile. As for talent, there's certainly no need to worry. How bad can the son of a titled Douluo be? Take the 2 geniuses of the Clear Sky sect today, for example. They are also sons of a titled Douluo, and their talent is aimed at surpassing their father in the future. In my view, the task of adding a second titled Douluo to the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect might fall upon Sect Master Yu's son. The sect master of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School spoke as if it were a matter of course, while also giving a nod to the Clear Sky sect. Yu Yuanzhen and the members of the Clear Sky sect, who were being praised, all looked delighted, while the titled Douluo from Spirit Hall on the side didn't look very pleased. 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. My father's praise back then wasn't actually out of line. Both Tang Hao and Tang Xiao became titled Douluos, and Tang Hao even inherited the title of Clear Sky Douluo. It's just a pity that even my father didn't expect that the son of a dignified titled Douluo would actually awaken like that. Enning Fengzhai looked at his father's face in the heavenly curtain, shaking his head while reminiscing. One can only say that the heavens did not wish for their Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect to rise. Bone Douluo Gu Rong gave a cold laugh. Sword Douluo Chen Xin, who was beside him, did not speak. A mere Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang couldn't pique his interest at all. What truly made him curious was that Yu Xiaogang from the parallel world, who was granted the title of Dragon God. Dragon God, bestowed with the name of a god, without sufficiently powerful strength, it would be absolutely impossible to hold such a title firmly. Since the heavenly curtain recognized this title and broadcasted it, that meant that Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang was definitely a supreme powerhouse. Don't let me down, Chen Xin murmured. As all the personnel for the martial soul awakening arrived, the awakening ceremony officially began. As the son of the sect master, Yu Xiaogang naturally made his appearance last. What followed was the awakening process of the various disciples of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Yu Xiaochuan Spirit Thunder Lizard, Innate Soul Power Level 3. Yu Feng, Spirit Lightning Python, Innate Soul Power Level 2. Yu Royan, Spirit Thunderfire Gorilla, Innate Soul Power Level 4. God Yu Xiaogang, Spirit Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon, Innate Soul Power Level 7. One youth after another completed their martial soul awakening. Some were overjoyed, some were dejected, and some even wept aloud. Unfortunately, the observers didn't cast even a single glance at those who were heartbroken. The world is just that cruel. Martial soul awakening is a watershed that separates friends who could once play together into two different worlds. As the number of youths yet to awaken continued to decrease, those still waiting showed nervous expressions. At this time, Yu Xiaogang, who held his neck high among the crowd with a face full of confidence, naturally stood out. Truly a hero born of youth, what a magnificent style. The sect master of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School praised once again. Ha ha ha, he's still too flamboyant, that's not good. Yu Yuanzhen laughed heartily. Though he said it wasn't good, he didn't care in the slightest. For a genius, wouldn't they be looked down upon if they weren't a bit flamboyant? Soon, everyone except Yu Xiaogang had completed their awakening. For a moment, the eyes of everyone at the ceremony site were focused on Yu Xiaogang. Under everyone's gaze, Yu Xiaogang glanced proudly at the children who had already completed their awakening, then strode forward to the center of the awakening array and stood still. As the ceremony began, in an instant, an intense golden light enveloped Yu Xiaogang. Just looking at this golden light, everyone understood that Yu Xiaogang's spirit must be extremely powerful. Good! Yu Yuanzhen, who had always held high expectations for his son, shouted and stood up directly from his seat. If the results hadn't come out yet, he probably would have started clapping by now. Even so, at this moment, Yu Yuanzhen's mind had already begun to fantasize about the scene of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect having 2 Douluos in one family in the future. Roar! The roar of a giant dragon resounded in everyone's ears. Everyone was waiting for the moment the spirit would manifest. Wrapped in the light, Yu Xiaogang also seemed to feel the power of his spirit, so he raised his hands, full of spirit. Manifest my spirit. Suddenly, to everyone's surprise, as Yu Xiaogang's words fell, the light enveloping him shattered with a bang. A small figure appeared in front of Yu Xiaogang. Dead silence. Everyone's eyes widened, staring in disbelief at that figure that resembled a piglet. Luo. The small beast that appeared at Yu Xiaogang's feet seemed frightened by everyone's gaze, so it instinctively hid behind the equally stunned Yu Xiaogang. Chapter 5, Falling from Heaven to Hell, Yu Xiaogang pretends to faint. Lua. A small beast shaped like a piglet hid behind Yu Xiaogang, crying out softly. Out of affection for Yu Xiaogang, it even stepped forward and rubbed against his pant leg. What is that? A quiet mutter, not particularly loud, caused the awakening scene, which seemed frozen in time, to resume its flow. All the guests looked at one another, and for a moment no one knew what to say. The spirit has a beast form, clearly a beast spirit, but it is born outside the body. This might be a brand new classification of spirits. Ultimately, it was the previous sect master of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School who spoke, finally restoring the clamor to the deathly silent scene. Regrettably, at this moment, the eyes of most people were already filled with the look of someone waiting to see a good show. Who among those invited by the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect to witness the ceremony wasn't a renowned expert? Their strength might not match that of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, but they still possessed knowledge of spirits. The spirit Yu Xiaogang had just awakened had clearly undergone a mutation. Although they didn't understand the specifics, there was no way that pig-like appearance could be considered a positive mutation. Hahaha, I also agree with Brother Enning's assessment. Born outside the body, this form of spirit is unprecedented, even in the records of our spirit hall. The spirit hall, titled Douluo, whose expression had been unsightly until now, finally burst into laughter. What could make him happier than seeing his rival suffer a setback? Yu Xiaogang, don't worry, go test your innate soul power. Taking a deep breath and then slowly exhaling, Yu Yuanzhen calmed his rollercoaster-like emotions. When Yu Xiaogang was enveloped in light just moments ago, he had already been thinking about how he would celebrate his son's awakening with full, innate soul power. But now, everything was shattered. Yu Yuanzhen's words brought the member of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, presiding over the awakening ceremony, back to his senses. He glanced at the small beast by Yu Xiaogang's feet, frowned, and held the crystal ball for testing innate soul power in front of Yu Xiaogang. Young sect master, test your innate soul power first. Perhaps things aren't as bad as you think. The words of the person in charge seemed to clear Yu Xiaogang's abnormal state, causing the boy, who had been frozen like stone for a long time, to move again. He looked at the small beast by his feet, his eyes widening and his fists clenching in a look of utter disbelief. What is this? Yu Xiaogang's voice was so quiet it was nearly audible only to himself. At this moment, he was so terrified that his voice had vanished. He desperately wished that what was happening was just a dream. But the pain from his clenched fists told him that everything was real. Young sect master, test your innate soul power first. Seeing Yu Xiaogang's state, the person in charge frowned, and his voice involuntarily grew louder. You! Startled by the voice, Yu Xiaogang glanced at the person in charge and clearly caught the man's frown. Heart was filled with indignation, but he didn't dare speak the words aloud. Why is he frowning? Is he dissatisfied with me? I am the young sect master of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. How dare he be dissatisfied with me? Is it because he saw that the spirit I awakened is no good, so he dares to act like this? All sorts of thoughts flashed through Yu Xiaogang's mind. At this moment, he felt as if all the noise around him was mocking him. Despite this, he still held onto a final hope. Perhaps he had full innate soul power, and this spirit was simply an unprecedented type. Thus, Yu Xiaogang placed his hand on the crystal ball. The noise ceased, and most people subconsciously held their breath. Among them, Yu Yuanzhen, the father, was the most nervous. He had already prayed to every deity he could think of in his heart. But unfortunately, the heavens ultimately did not respond to him. A light so faint it was almost imperceptible flickered on the crystal ball. Seeing this light, everyone understood that Yu Xiaogang, the son of a titled Douluo, would henceforth be nothing more than a laughingstock. Innate soul power, rank 0.5. The person in charge announced the final result. Yu Xiaogang's face instantly turned deathly pale, and his legs gave way, leaving him slumped on the ground. Innate soul power, rank 0.5. Rank 0.5. Black World Spirit Hall. Xiaogang. Looking at Yu Xiaogang slumped on the ground in the image, Bibaidong's eyes were filled with heartache. At this moment, she hated the existence that was broadcasting the heavenly curtain, presenting the pain Yu Xiaogang had once suffered before his eyes once again. She also hated herself. Why couldn't she enter the heavenly curtain to properly comfort him? Suotuo City, Shrek Academy. Ayaraza. Enveloped by the pain of the past, Yu Xiaogang let out a heart-wrenching roar. Before this, he had thought that these things that had happened to him would no longer stir any waves in his heart. But when everything reappeared before his eyes, he found that his pain and his anger were completely uncontrollable. He hated his family, especially his father, Yu Yuanzhen, hating him for giving him such talent. His father was clearly a titled Douluo, yet he was so stingy that he hadn't passed even a shred of talent to his son, making him the laughingstock of the entire continent. Raising his head and seeing the look in Yu Yuanzhen's eyes on the heavenly curtain, which was equally shocked, but also full of concern for his young self, the resentment in Yu Xiaogang's eyes became even more apparent. Concern? If you were concerned about me, then why didn't you give me a decent talent? Meanwhile, on the other side, at the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Sigh. Yu Yuanzhen stared blankly at the past, being presented once again on the heavenly curtain, and after a long while, let out a deep sigh. A single martial soul awakening had turned his son into the sect's shame, and in the years that followed, Yu Xiaogang was forever trapped by his own talent. He only had 2 sons in his life. The eldest was born early and had fairly good talent. His second son, Yu Xiaogang, was born after he became a titled Douluo. Throughout the Douluo continent, the offspring of titled Douluos were never lacking. Therefore, both he and the sect had been full of expectations for him. Unfortunately, fate plays tricks on people. The video continues. A pig-like spirit and rank 0.5 innate soul power, everything was telling everyone that Yu Xiaogang, this son of a titled Douluo was a complete and utter trash. The children who had awakened their spirits before Yu Xiaogang, who had tried to curry favor with him under their parents' instructions but had been directly driven away by him, certainly weren't going to be kind with their words now. To think my parents even told me to get on good terms with him earlier. Looking at it now, there's absolutely no need. Exactly, last time I even took the delicious food I'd been saving to share with him, but he just slapped it onto the ground. I didn't even get to eat it myself. Didn't he say before that he and we aren't from the same world? Well, he's right, we really aren't from the same world. To think the sect master's son has such talent, he's a real disgrace to our Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. The children's voices reached Yu Xiaogang's ears. Hearing them, Yu Xiaogang didn't even have the courage to turn his head and look at them. Not just those children, Yu Xiaogang didn't have the guts to meet anyone's gaze. At this moment, he wished so much that he could just faint, so that he wouldn't have to know how people were mocking him. The voices in his ears grew increasingly piercing. Finally, unable to endure it any longer, Yu Xiaogang closed his eyes and slumped, slowly falling to the ground. Since he hadn't fainted naturally, he would pretend to faint. In any case, he didn't want to see the way those people were looking at him. Chapter 6, Yu Yuanzhen chooses to continue cultivating Yu Xiaogang. Black World Shrek Academy. Looking at Yu Xiaogang pretending to faint on the heavenly curtain, everyone's gaze turned toward the Yu Xiaogang beside them. Especially Flender, Zhao Wuji, and the others, their eyes held a certain indescribable complexity as they looked at Yu Xiaogang. He doesn't actually think that by pretending to faint, the people there wouldn't notice, does he? Finally, the young Miss Ning Rongrong voiced the thought everyone had after seeing this scene. If a 6-year-old child from an ordinary family pretended to faint, they might have been able to get away with it. But the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's awakening ceremony had invited powerhouses from every faction on the Douluo continent. Several titled Douluo had come, and Spirit Douluo and Spirit Saints were too numerous to count. A 6-year-old child pretending to faint in front of these people. He would likely be discovered instantly, leading to even more unrestrained mockery of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. At the same time, Yu Xiaogang's father, Yu Yuanzhen, was the one who truly lost all face at this moment. In the martial soul awakenings of the Douluo continent, malignant mutations occurred very frequently, and cases where the innate soul power test showed absolutely no spirit power happened 99% of the time. The reason the spirits of many powerhouses failed to be passed down was that their descendants failed to inherit their talent. But failing to inherit talent wasn't something shameful. For instance, even if others mocked Yu Xiaogang for being a dog son of a tiger father, the laughter would pass after a few times. Ultimately, Yu Yuanzhen was still a titled Douluo. Even if his son was disappointing, he himself was a top-tier powerhouse, standing at the peak of the Douluo continent. Yet Yu Xiaogang performed a fake faint in front of everyone, burying his head in the sand, as if that could escape everything. He showed none of the upbringing expected of a great family member, let alone the poise of a titled Douluo son. It could be said that originally, since Yu Xiaogang's talent was poor, people mostly mocked Yu Xiaogang himself, with rival factions mocking Yu Yuanzhen by association. But at this moment, what people would mock was their entire Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Even a pampered young miss like Ning Rongrong knew that her actions represented her sect. She could be arrogant and look down on anyone. But she could never do something that would disgrace the sect's reputation. Huff and hiss and huff. Hearing Ning Rongrong's words and seeing the looks from Flender and the others, Yu Xiaogang clenched his fists and panted continuously. Perhaps he didn't understand this logic in the past, but he certainly understood it now. But so what if he understood? Could the face he had already lost be picked back up? Cursed heavenly curtain, why must it replay everything from back then? This is clearly something people had long forgotten. Yu Xiaogang gritted his teeth, his eyes bloodshot. If he could, he really wanted to rush into the sky and shatter the heavenly curtain, but he couldn't. He could only let the heavenly curtain present his ugliest past to everyone. The video continues. Yu Xiaogang's fake faint did not deceive the people present. Perhaps the young children who had just awakened their spirits would be startled by him, but the others would not. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect member responsible for the martial soul awakening glanced at the fallen Yu Xiaogang, a deep sense of disgust rising in his heart. The Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect held this awakening ceremony to proclaim their prestige to the various factions of the Douluo continent. To tell those coveting the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's position among the upper three sects that their sect was not only filled with powerhouses, but also had a great number of future geniuses. Disappointment, sadness, even wailing, everyone could understand these. Martial soul awakenings were just that cruel. But choosing to pretend to faint in front of everyone. This was evasion, this was an unwillingness to face reality. Such a cowardly and pathetic person was actually their own young sect master. It was simply a total disgrace to the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's reputation. The person in charge, unsure of how to deal with Yu Xiaogang, turned his gaze toward Yu Yuanzhen on the other side. At this moment, Yu Yuanzhen was staring fixedly at Yu Xiaogang's figure, pretending to faint on the ground. He didn't understand why his son would choose to do this. Did he not know that every move he made represented the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect? Ha ha ha, brother Yu, what a pity. Your esteemed son failed to awaken a suitable spirit. However, this way your son can enjoy some peace and leisure. It's just this style of conduct, it still needs a lot of tempering. A titled Douluo from the spirit hall mocked sarcastically. Responding to him were Yu Yuanzhen's eyes, which were almost entirely filled with bloodshot veins. All right, brother Yu. Your young master is likely just overcome with grief from the martial soul awakening, which is why he fainted. You should comfort him well. Seeing that Yu Yuanzhen might explode at any moment, the sect master of the 7 treasure glazed tile school immediately stepped forward to smooth things over. After staring intently at the spirit hall's titled Douluo for a long time, Yu Yuanzhen finally gave a cold snort, glanced at the still-faking Yu Xiaogang, and directly brushed his sleeves and left. A perfectly good awakening ceremony ultimately ended on a sour note. After the awakening ceremony, the faking Yu Xiaogang was carried back to his room. Afterward, he shut his door tightly and never went out again. During this time, Yu Yuanzhen, having calmed down slightly, saw Yu Xiaogang huddled in his room without eating or drinking. He arranged for someone to bring him food and then went to argue with the sect's elders. You should have seen the situation at the start of Xiaogang's martial soul awakening. That was definitely the appearance of a top-tier spirit. The subsequent dragon roar also proved this. Furthermore, the spirit existing independently from the spirit master's body is an unprecedented situation. Therefore, I believe Xiaogang's spirit is good. It's just been held back by his innate soul power. If we cultivate him, perhaps there will be unexpected surprises. Yu Yuanzhen looked at the crowd of Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect elders in the room. His meaning was clear. Even if Yu Xiaogang's talent was poor, he still wanted to cultivate him. And this method of cultivation was naturally to use resources to forcibly stack his power up. I disagree. He caused our Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect to lose so much face, and he still wants to use the sect's resources. Impossible. I also disagree. With only half a rank of innate soul power, how many resources would it take to stack him up? With those resources, wouldn't it be better to cultivate those few children with better talent from this year? Sect Master, although your son's spirit is indeed a bit strange, it is not enough for us to support him. The voices of all the elders were in opposition. Some were because of Yu Xiaogang's actions today, while others felt it wasn't worth it. Then I will give him my own cultivation resources. You should have nothing to say then, right? Hearing the elders' opposition, Yu Yuanzhen wanted to say more, but ultimately couldn't bring himself to. After some thought, he gritted his teeth and spoke. And this time, although the elders still disapproved, they could no longer find a reason to object. Thus, Yu Yuanzhen came to Yu Xiaogang's door once again and informed him of his decision. But what responded to him was Yu Xiaogang's hysterical screaming. "Ara, I'm not listening, get out, get out." Chapter 7, The Despised Yu Xiaogang, switching the subject of broadcast. Black World, Shrek Academy. Looking at Yu Yuanzhen standing blankly in front of the door on the screen, and Yu Xiaogang who was still hysterical inside the room, everyone's gaze changed. Enning Rongrong, Oscar, Dai Mubai, and the other children all looked at Yu Xiaogang with eyes full of disdain. A malignant mutation during martial soul awakening and having half a rank of innate soul power was one thing. There were countless people like that on the Douluo continent. But they felt there probably weren't many people who would act like Yu Xiaogang. Especially when his father, Yu Yuanzhen, took out his own cultivation resources for Yu Xiaogang to use, only to be told to get lost by Yu Xiaogang. This was only because Yu Xiaogang was Yu Yuanzhen's son. If anyone else dared to speak like that in front of the Thunder Douluo, the grass on their grave would probably be taller than a person by now. Even Tang San, who had always regarded Yu Xiaogang as a father figure, frowned deeply at this moment. He also had a father, but unfortunately, his father was a man who spent all day drinking. Nevertheless, Tang San remained very respectful and filial toward his father, Tang Hao. So now, seeing Yu Yuanzhen fighting for resources for Yu Xiaogang, and even giving up his own cultivation resources for him, only for Yu Xiaogang to respond with such an attitude, it made Tang San feel very uncomfortable in his heart. Teacher had just experienced his martial soul awakening and was at the most desperate moment of his life. It's inevitable he would act this way. Ultimately, Tang San took a deep breath and found an excuse for Yu Xiaogang's behavior. On the side, Zhao Wuji and others who were not familiar with Yu Xiaogang were much more blatant in their gazes toward him. Some people are born lucky but just don't live up to it. A titled Douluo father supports him so much, and he actually tells the man to get lost. Good grief, I wouldn't even dare think of saying get lost to Spirit Douluo, yet he can say it to a titled Douluo. Didn't Flender say before that his rank is 29? That means in the end, he still used those resources, tusk. It's good to have a titled Douluo for a father. Half a rank of innate spirit power was forcibly stacked up to rank 29. If that were us, do you think I'd be a Spirit Douluo by now? What a waste of resources. Zhao Wuji and the others' discussions weren't loud, only Flender among those present could hear them. He glared at Zhao Wuji and the rest, but unfortunately they had no intention of stopping. Flender was helpless against this because, from what the Heavenly Curtain had shown so far, Yu Xiaogang really hadn't displayed anything noteworthy. It will get better later. After all, Xiaogang made a name for himself later on. Flender comforted himself in his heart. It was the only thing he could do right now. 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. So, is this why Yu Yuanzhen, who is of our generation and whose talent was even a notch above mine, is now at the same rank as me? The expression on Bone Douluo Gurong's face was somewhat peculiar. So that's how it is, no wonder. Sword Douluo Chen Xin also showed a look of sudden realization. Looking at it this way, the price Yu Yuanzhen paid was quite significant, yet the result was unsatisfactory. Fate truly toys with people. Enning Fengzhai lamented. Delaying a titled Douluo's cultivation, only to end up with a result that could never break through rank 29. In Ning Fengzhai's eyes, this deal was a massive loss. The video continues. Faced with Yu Xiaogang's hysteria, Yu Yuanzhen took a deep breath and patiently explained to him. Xiaogang, don't lose heart yet. Your innate spirit power might be very low, but you have me as your father. With me here, you won't lack cultivation resources. Low talent will only make your cultivation a bit slower. As for your spirit, it was born separated from your body. This is an unprecedented situation on the Douluo continent. Besides, when your spirit first awakened, the commotion was something only seen with the awakening of very powerful spirits. From this, it can be judged that your spirit actually has great potential. As long as you can grow, even if it's a malignant mutation, you might not be unable to improve it. Everything depends on what kind of spirit rings you add to your spirit later on. So, don't lose confidence right from the start. You are the son of me, Thunder Douluo Yu Yuanzhen. Even if your talent is poor with me here, you can live out this life in wealth and comfort. On that basis, whatever level of strength you can reach is a bonus. Do you understand? As Yu Yuanzhen's voice fell, Yu Xiaogang roared again inside the room. Go away, just go away, don't disturb me, ah. Hearing the roars coming from the room again, Yu Yuanzhen sighed and eventually left. In the following days, Yu Xiaogang continued to lock himself in his room until he could no longer stand the hunger. Only then did he step out to eat and drink his fill before returning to his room to isolate himself. This kind of life lasted for a full half year. Half a year later. A much chubbier Yu Xiaogang, whose facial expression had become somewhat stiff, stood before Yu Yuanzhen and expressed his desire to cultivate. In fact, during those 6 months of self-isolation, he had tried to cultivate, but unfortunately, his cultivation speed was slower than a crawling snail. He was unwilling to accept this. He remembered the ridicule of the crowd at the awakening ceremony, and he wanted to prove himself and make those who once mocked him regret it. Of course, more importantly, he could not accept that those he once looked down upon would one day look down on him from a high position. Regarding Yu Xiaogang's thoughts, Yu Yuanzhen, whose anger had completely dissipated over the half-year, was naturally very welcoming. Thus, Yu Xiaogang began his daily cultivation routine. On ordinary days, he would brave the strange looks of the clansmen to enter the mimicry cultivation field that Yu Yuanzhen had specially prepared for him to spare his feelings. From time to time, amidst the contemptuous discussions of the crowd, he would collect the cultivation resources passed to him by Yu Yuanzhen. In addition, he would use Yu Yuanzhen's status to take numerous books from the family library that were only permitted to be read on site. In short, Yu Xiaogang took for granted the conveniences his father Yu Yuanzhen provided, unceremoniously consuming all the resources. Relying on numerous resources that could affect a titled Douluo's cultivation, starting from half a rank of innate spirit power, Yu Xiaogang climbed upward step by step. Finally, in the year Yu Xiaogang turned 15, his spirit power reached rank 10, the time to obtain his first soul ring. Just as those who knew nothing about Yu Xiaogang were curious about what his first soul ring would be, the screen suddenly stopped. The first part has finished playing. Take a break. The comparison subject, Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang, is about to begin. Chapter 8, a start even worse than Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang. White World Spirit Hall. Few finally switching the broadcast subject. This heavenly curtain is truly detestable, and so is that Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang. Does he even deserve the name Yu Xiaogang? Bibi Dong pointed at the heavenly curtain indignantly. She had been in this state for a long time. In her eyes, her husband Yu Xiaogang was the most upright and indomitable man in this world. Facing any danger or predicament, he would never retreat cowardly, but would always choose to face the challenge head-on. But the Yu Xiaogang in the heavenly curtain actually chose to feign fainting during his martial soul awakening. Such an act was simply a smear on her husband's reputation. Humph, the world is truly full of wonders. If not for the heavenly curtain, I would never have imagined this kid would be such a coward in a parallel world. Not far away, Gold Crocodile Douluo snorted coldly, his face filled with an expression of disdain. Beside him, Cayenne Daolu nodded in agreement. He had also had his eyes opened. Ever since Yu Xiaogang appeared before him, he had witnessed what a true favored son of heaven was like. Compared to Yu Xiaogang, whether it was himself or those geniuses recorded by the Spirit Hall, they were all overshadowed to the point of being buried in the ground. Even the former ancestor of the Cayenne family, the angel god who founded the Spirit Hall, was probably just like Yu Xiaogang in Cayenne Daolu's heart. Let's just treat the heavenly curtain as a collection of strange tales. The Yu Xiaogang over there is far too inferior. Shaking his head, Cayenne Daolu commented. It really is hard to describe in a few words. And if one were to ask who among everyone present was the calmest, it would likely be Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang himself. Looking at Yu Xiaogang's performance in the heavenly curtain, he understood that if he hadn't transmigrated to this world and replaced Yu Xiaogang, then this was what should have originally happened. After some thought, Yu Xiaogang ultimately shook his head. No matter how pathetic the Yu Xiaogang over there was, it wouldn't affect him. He would just treat this heavenly curtain as a story. And if one were to ask who was most dissatisfied with Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang's performance, it was undoubtedly Yu Xiaogang's father, Yu Yuanzhen. Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect. I don't acknowledge it. That is absolutely not my son. Parallel world or whatever, I don't accept it. Yu Yuanzhen repeatedly slammed the table, emotionally distancing himself from the Yu Xiaogang in the heavenly curtain. He simply couldn't accept that his son would be like that in a parallel world. Xiaogang was the greatest pride of his life, and he would not allow anyone to smear Xiaogang's reputation. Seeing their sect master's agitated state, the elders' expressions were somewhat helpless. Sect master, even if you don't acknowledge it, it's still. Shut up, I said it's not, so it's not. From now on, that fellow on the heavenly curtain shall be called Yu Xiaogang. No one is allowed to call him Yu Xiaogang anymore. Yu Yuanzhen's eyes widened, with an expression that said he would make anyone who disagreed suffer. Seeing this, the elders could only shut their mouths. However, they could understand why Yu Yuanzhen was acting this way. In the entire Douluo continent, anyone who knew Thunder Douluo Yu Yuanzhen knew that the thing he was most proud of in his life was having a son like Yu Xiaogang. In daily life, at venues where various forces interacted, if one wanted to curry favor with Yu Yuanzhen, simply praising Yu Xiaogang profusely in front of him would make him overjoyed. And when engaged in verbal sparring with other titled Douluo, Yu Yuanzhen basically couldn't go 3 sentences without mentioning Yu Xiaogang. Yet his opponents had no way to refute him, which was very frustrating. Under such circumstances, how could the broadcast of a video showing Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang losing face not make him angry? Aside from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, everyone across the White World who knew Yu Xiaogang also began to curse the Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang shown on the heavenly curtain. Basically, no one was willing to admit that Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang and the Yu Xiaogang they knew were the same person. In such an atmosphere, the video regarding Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang finally began to play. A certain courtyard in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Wah! Accompanied by a cry, a newborn baby arrived on the Douluo continent. His father, Yu Yuanzhen, with an excited heart, named him Yu Xiaogang. It was the exact same start as Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang, which instantly shattered the previous speculation that Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang's changes stemmed from his parents. At this moment, everyone in the Black World who knew of Yu Xiaogang's situation frowned. As the son of the sect's only titled Douluo, Yu Xiaogang had been highly anticipated by everyone in the sect since birth. However, to everyone's surprise, not long after his birth, the servant responsible for taking care of Yu Xiaogang discovered something wrong with him. What did you say? Xiaogang might have mental issues. In Yu Xiaogang's room, Yu Yuanzhen's eyes widened as he stared at the woman taking care of Yu Xiaogang. There are indeed some issues. We've noticed these past few days that young Master Xiaogang's gaze is always blank and dull, not nearly as bright as other newborn children. Besides that, we tried to interact with him using objects, but he rarely gives us any feedback. The woman had a look of pity on her face. In fact, her words were already very conservative. Saying he had mental issues was just a way to comfort Yu Yuanzhen. The real situation was likely that the child might be a simpleton. A shocking start. Everyone had originally thought that Yu Xiaogang, who could become a titled Douluo, was definitely a top-tier favored son of heaven. Things like standing up in 3 days, walking in 7, running in 10, reading and writing in half a month, and being eloquent in a month. But as it turned out in the beginning, he actually might have had brain issues. Could such a person really become a titled Douluo? Black World, Shrek Academy. A simpleton can actually surpass me. I don't believe it. This heavenly curtain must have been made by my enemies to humiliate me. Yu Xiaogang pointed at the heavenly curtain and roared. Other than that, he couldn't think of why he would be inferior to a simpleton. The people nearby who had previously mocked Yu Xiaogang also looked at each other, beginning to wonder if it was true, as Yu Xiaogang said, that the heavenly curtain was something someone used to humiliate him. Otherwise, they couldn't understand how a simpleton could achieve the rank of titled Douluo. White World Spirit Hall. Qian Dailiu, Gold Crocodile Douluo, and the others looked at the heavenly curtain. Then at the Yu Xiaogang beside them, momentarily questioning their reality. With such a start, it's a miracle you could turn things around. Xiaogang Yu. Bibi Dong, who felt the most for Yu Xiaogang, already had reddened eyes. Even she didn't know about this. Don't be sad, it's actually a good thing. Yu Xiaogang pulled Bibi Dong into his arms, constantly comforting her. Looking at his younger self on the heavenly curtain, he couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia. He had transmigrated here before Yu Xiaogang was even born. After transmigrating, he, possessing memories of his past life, merged with the fetus. His spirit far exceeded that of an ordinary infant, and coupled with the influence of the mystery of the womb, he remained in a dazed and muddled state for a long time. He could sense everything, but was unable to perfectly control his own body. However, there were benefits. His mental force far surpassed his peers, laying the foundation for his subsequent growth. Chapter 9: Yu Xiaogang as a Father. The video continues. Although the woman did not finish her sentence, how could Yu Xiaogang not understand her meaning? He looked at Yu Xiaogang with a face full of heartache and reached out, wanting to touch his ill-fated child. As his palm touched Yu Xiaogang's soft little hand in the swaddling clothes, Yu Xiaogang fell into deep thought for a moment. Finally, he exhorted the woman to take good care of his son. Afterward, Yu Xiaogang arranged the sex affairs with the utmost speed, distributing his duties as sect master among several elders. Once these were completed, Yu Xiaogang personally took Yu Xiaogang away from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, traveling to various places across the Douluo continent to seek medical treatment, hoping to cure his son's condition. He didn't know how many people he had sought out, but finally, Yu Xiaogang received an answer from the Yi family, who inherited the 9-heart begonia spirit. This child possesses astonishing spiritual power, but unfortunately, his brain is not mature enough to carry this power. That is why he is in his current state. Take him back and raise him well. If he can recover his wits and awaken a spiritual-type spirit, his future achievements will likely be extraordinary. However, Sect Master Yu, it's best not to hold too much hope. After all, recovering one's wits in this situation is far too difficult. The words from the head of the Yi family made Yu Xiaogang's expression turn grim. He thanked the head of the Yi family and then led his party back to the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. He informed the elders of the head of the Yi family's diagnosis, and the elders immediately had thoughts of giving up on Yu Xiaogang. Some elders even advised Yu Xiaogang to send Yu Xiaogang away from the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, while his feelings for the boy were still shallow. If he were sent far away where he couldn't be seen, he naturally wouldn't feel troubled anymore. Black World Spirit Hall. HMPH, how snobbish. The elders of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect in our world were all smiles at first because Xiaogang was the son of a titled Douluo, but as soon as the martial soul awakening showed his talent was poor, they immediately changed their faces. In the parallel world, they're even more direct, wanting to send Xiaogang's counterpart away from the very start. With a bunch of vermin like you around, it's no wonder Xiaogang's life was so miserable. Bibi Dong looked at the faces of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect elders with a look of disgust. If she had the chance, she wouldn't let a single one of those old geezers off. 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Such actions are indeed consistent with the ways of a great family. Enning Fengzhai's expression was unreadable. As the sect master of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, he had seen plenty of such things. He wouldn't judge whether such actions were right or wrong. But considering this Yu Xiaogang's future, perhaps we will see that old dragon weeping with regret. The Bone Douluo, Gu Rong, laughed heartily and spoke with a look of anticipation. The video continues. However, to everyone's surprise, Yu Xiaogang rejected the elder's proposal. Xiaogang is my son. This fact remains the same regardless of his condition. Since he lives with me, it is no trouble at all for me to assign people to care for him. Therefore, do not mention the matter of sending him away again. With a wave of his hand, Yu Xiaogang decided Yu Xiaogang's fate. Unbeknownst to anyone during this process, a spark of intelligence flashed in Yu Xiaogang's vacant eyes. Afterward, time passed day by day, and Yu Xiaogang slowly grew up. He still hadn't recovered his wits, maintaining a dull and foolish appearance. He would often sit alone by the flower bed outside his house, staring blankly at the distant scenery. Whenever this happened, a warm, large hand would always rest on Yu Xiaogang's head. The firm palm made Yu Xiaogang feel incredibly secure. The owner of the hand was naturally Yu Xiaogang's father, Yu Xiaogang. Although his son had some issues, he never once looked down on Yu Xiaogang. He would often find time to come to Yu Xiaogang's side after completing his daily cultivation and handling the family's affairs, telling him about the Douluo continent. Sometimes it was interesting stories, sometimes necessary knowledge, or simply recounting recent events. His voice was steady and slow, as if he were afraid that if he spoke too fast, Yu Xiaogang wouldn't understand. It was like this every day, without fail. White World, Spirit Hall. Father. Bibi Dong felt a pang in her heart as she watched Yu Yuanzhen accompanying Yu Xiaogang on the screen. At that time, Yu Yuanzhen didn't know that Yu Xiaogang would recover his wits in the future, nor did he know that Yu Xiaogang could become a titled Douluo. So his kindness toward Yu Xiaogang was purely the kindness of a father toward his son. Even ordinary families might not act this way, let alone Yu Yuanzhen, who stood at the very peak of the Douluo continent as a titled Douluo. A man like Yu Yuanzhen truly deserves the praise of being a good father. That's why I never wanted to disappoint father, Yu Xiaogang said softly. At that time, although he was in a dull and foolish state, he was actually aware of everything in the outside world. He just had no way to control his body properly. And Yu Yuanzhen's companionship, Yu Yuanzhen's care for him, Yu Xiaogang could feel it all clearly. This fatherly love was something Yu Xiaogang had never experienced before. Before transmigrating, Yu Xiaogang was an orphan who grew up in an orphanage and had never felt the love of parents. After transmigrating, with his memories as an adult, everything on the Douluo continent should have been hard to accept. But Yu Yuanzhen's care truly allowed him to find his own anchor on the Douluo continent. Yu Xiaogang understood that he was no longer alone like in his previous life. He had a father who wouldn't give up on him, even if he was foolish. Black World, Shrek Academy. Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang stared blankly at the gentle expression on Yu Yuanzhen's face on the heavenly curtain. How long had it been since he had seen his father like this? He still remembered that before his spirit awakened, his father had been just as caring toward him. Except at that time, he was the highly anticipated young sect master of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Everyone was trying to please him, so back then, he felt that everything was only natural. But a single martial soul awakening caused him to lose everything. After that, did his father ever look at him with such eyes again? Yu Xiaogang searched through his memories, only to find that he had never cared about what kind of expression would appear on his father's face. When did that expression of being proud of him disappear? And when did his face begin to show rejection and disgust toward him? He had never paid attention to any of it. The video continues. With Yu Yuanzhen's constant companionship, Yu Xiaogang reached over 5 years of age. In less than a year, he would undergo his martial soul awakening. However, even now, Yu Xiaogang remained in that dull and foolish state. Countless people had mocked Yu Yuanzhen because of Yu Xiaogang, laughing that a titled Douluo had actually sired a fool. Yu Yuanzhen turned a deaf ear to these mockeries, focusing only on his own affairs as if the laughter never existed. On this day, as usual, Yu Yuanzhen was telling Yu Xiaogang about recent events. Just as Yu Yuanzhen was speaking about those two geniuses from the Clear Sky sect. Suddenly, his father, a tender but clear voice sounded in his ear. For a moment, Yu Yuanzhen was stunned. He instinctively looked to his side, only to find that his son, who had been with him for several years and whose eyes had always been vacant, now had eyes that were bright and full of life. Chapter 10: The Envious Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang and Tang San. Xiaogang Yu. Yu Yuanzhen gazed into Yu Xiaogang's eyes, his lips feeling somewhat dry. At this moment, he could even clearly feel his heart thumping wildly within his chest. His father. Yu Xiaogang reached out and took his father's hand. Comparing it to his own, Yu Yuanzhen's palm was broad and rough. With his current hand size, he could only grasp one of Yu Yuanzhen's fingers. But Yu Xiaogang was very happy. He could finally touch his family in this life. He had heard Yu Yuanzhen's companionship over the past 5 years. It was impossible not to be moved. When he first underwent transmigration, Yu Xiaogang felt lost regarding everything on the Douluo continent. Back then, learning that he couldn't control his body because his spirit was too powerful, Yu Xiaogang even felt a bit relieved. Because of that, he wouldn't have to interact with his family in this life. But as he grew day by day, Yu Yuanzhen always cared for him. From his initial resistance to later acceptance, and then wanting to break free from this uncontrollable state of his body. Yu Xiaogang gradually accepted Yu Yuanzhen as his father and wanted to touch him with his own hands. And it wasn't until today that this wish was finally realized. Xiaogang, have you really regained your senses? Yu Yuanzhen's voice carried an irrepressible excitement. Yes. Yu Xiaogang nodded, responding to his father. Ha ha ha, wonderful, I knew you could do it. Yu Yuanzhen rushed forward and lifted Yu Xiaogang high, his face overflowing with a hearty smile. Father, put me down quickly. The suddenly lifted Yu Xiaogang struggled as he spoke. He was someone who had lived through 2 lives after all. He'd rather skip this kind of interaction. Black World, Shrek Academy. Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang stared at the interaction between the now lucid Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang and Yu Yuanzhen on the heavenly curtain, feeling an inexplicable discomfort in his heart. HMPH, he only regained his senses at over 5 years old and is having his martial soul awakening at 6. I'll see what kind of junk he can awaken. I bet he won't even be as good as me. Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang let out a cold snort, speaking almost through gritted teeth. Beside him, Flender was momentarily speechless upon hearing this. If he weren't good brothers with Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang, he would have wanted to mock Yu Xiaogang just like Xiao Wuji and the others. Please, the guy eventually became a titled Douluo, so what if his awakening is worse than yours? Also standing aside without speaking was Yu Xiaogang's prized disciple, Tang San. He stared blankly at the father-son interaction on the heavenly curtain, a sour flame of envy gradually rising in his heart. It wasn't that he wanted to be like this with his own father, Tang Hao. He just thought about the days he spent in Saint Spirit Village during those years. From the time he could remember, he had taken on all the household chores. Chopping wood, lighting the fire, cooking, cleaning, every single task was completed by him alone. His father, Tang Hao, drank all day and didn't care about anything. And what about that Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang? His titled Douluo father took care of him and worried about him all day long. He didn't have to do anything to receive his father's love and care. They were both children. Wasn't it said that sensible children are the ones family likes best? Then why was he so sensible, yet the gap between him and others was so large? At this moment, even though Tang San considered himself a mature person, he couldn't help but feel a surge of jealousy and resentment toward the Yu Xiaogang on the heavenly curtain. Why? Tang San, who had always been considered the model child, felt for the first time that the heavens were truly unfair to him. The video continues. The news of Yu Xiaogang regaining his senses shook their entire Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. As the son of the sect master, even though Yu Xiaogang had been dim-witted before, there was no lack of people paying attention to him. I didn't expect him to actually return to normal, and just in time for the martial soul awakening. Hey, what kind of spirit do you think our son of the sect master will awaken? Who knows, but it's best not to get your hopes up. With the way he was before, what kind of good spirit could he possibly awaken? A true knighthood. The sect disciples were buzzing with discussion, especially since it was almost time for Yu Xiaogang's martial soul awakening. However, because of how Yu Xiaogang had been previously, not many people held any expectations for him. Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect Master's residence. Father, what do you think would happen if I started to cultivate before the martial soul awakening? Having regained his senses, and now able to control his body, Yu Xiaogang looked at Yu Yuanzhen. Having undergone transmigration to the Douluo continent, although Yu Xiaogang wasn't very familiar with the plot, he knew that his body's talent was poor. So before his spirit had even awakened, he had to do something. You want to start to cultivate before the martial soul awakening. Why? Yu Yuanzhen looked at his son in confusion. Father, although I was in a daze before, I could hear the things you told me about the Douluo continent. Martial soul awakening determines a person's future, given my situation. Yu Xiaogang didn't finish his sentence, but Yu Yuanzhen understood. His son was afraid of awakening a poor spirit and becoming the laughingstock of the sect once again. Xiaogang, don't worry. With me here, it doesn't matter how poor the spirit you awaken is. I am a titled Douluo, I'll see who dares to mock you. Yu Yuanzhen spoke with an overbearing air. He had the qualifications and the ability to say such things. However, hearing Yu Yuanzhen's words, Yu Xiaogang shook his head. I'm not worried about them mocking me, but I can't stand them mocking you. Hearing Yu Xiaogang's words, Yu Yuanzhen was stunned. He couldn't stand them mocking him. To become a titled Douluo, father, you must have always been someone people looked up to. Especially since you are the sect master of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, one of the upper 3 sects. But my appearance has become a blemish on your life. Yu Xiaogang's expression was somewhat dejected. After his transmigration, Yu Yuanzhen's care and protection had made Yu Xiaogang gradually accept this father. After accepting Yu Yuanzhen, the mockery that used to sound insignificant to him became particularly piercing. If they mocked him, Yu Xiaogang wouldn't have much of a reaction. As an orphan in his previous life, he had experienced far too many complicated things. But if they mocked his father, Yu Xiaogang could not accept it. Yet the tragic thing was, Yu Xiaogang had no way to stop this mockery. Because they were using him to mock Yu Yuanzhen, whose life was otherwise nearly flawless. To wash away this blemish, either the blemish must never have existed, or it must be made to shine brilliantly. So brilliant that no one would ever consider it a blemish again. Chapter 11. Yu Yuanzhen. Both are Yu Yuanzhen. Why is his son so good? But things were just not that easy. After the transmigration, Yu Xiaogang was not clear about what would happen in the future Douluo continent. One of the few things he knew happened to be that his talent was very poor. From birth until now, 5 years of a muddled life had already made Yu Yuanzhen the laughingstock of everyone. Once the martial soul awakening happens, would he continue to be a stain on Yu Yuanzhen's life for many years in the future? Whenever Yu Xiaogang thought about how much Yu Yuanzhen cared for him all these years, he was unwilling to let such a thing happen. Not even if he died. Therefore, not long after regaining his senses, Yu Xiaogang proposed the idea of wanting to cultivate to Yu Yuanzhen. Black World 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Fengzhai, could it be that starting to cultivate before martial soul awakening is actually useful? Bone Douluo Gu Rong said with a mix of surprise and doubt. If it were anyone else, he would certainly say that cultivating before martial soul awakening was useless. This was a rule that had been passed down through the legacy of the Douluo continent for unknown years. But Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang was different. He was the counterpart of the Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang. As for Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang's situation, how could people like them not be aware of it? The video of Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang, played on the heavenly curtain, showed that from his birth until now, his life was actually no different from Yu Xiaogang's, and was even worse. And this comparison was formed through the development of the same person making different choices. Then they couldn't help but wonder if every choice Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang made that was different from an ordinary person's would be the condition that allowed him to achieve a heaven-defying change of fate. Enning Fengzhai didn't dare to make a judgment for a moment. After all, this was an idea proposed by a future titled Douluo during his childhood. Let's watch a bit more first, we will know the answer later. Sword Douluo Chen Xin said. Besides the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, the Spirit Hall, the Clear Sky Sect, and various forces across the Douluo continent all focused their attention on the heavenly curtain at this moment. Everyone wanted to know if cultivating before martial soul awakening was actually useful, as it concerned how all of them would cultivate in the future. The video continues. Yu Xiaogang's words and his disappointed expression made Yu Yuanzhen step forward, squat down, and place his hand on Yu Xiaogang's head. Silly son, don't worry, you will never be a stain in my life. Yu Yuanzhen had a smile on his face when he spoke, but his words were powerful and resonant. If he truly regarded Yu Xiaogang as a stain, he would have sent him away long ago, shortly after Yu Xiaogang was born. Yu Yuanzhen's words made Yu Xiaogang's heart feel warm. Feeling the strength of the palm on his head, Yu Xiaogang shook his head and brushed the hand away. You might not care, but I do, so even if it might be useless, I want to try. Yu Xiaogang's voice was very firm. Looking at his son's eyes, Yu Yuanjun understood that he was serious. Regarding Yu Xiaogang's sentiment, Yu Yuanjun felt gratified. He hadn't doted on this son in vain. Cultivating is very painful. Are you sure you can endure it? Of course. And so the next day. Run with speed this slow, you still want to become stronger. On the training ground belonging exclusively to Yu Yuanjun in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, the 5-year-old Yu Xiaogang began his running training under the watchful eye of a solemn Yu Yuanjun. According to Yu Yuanjun, start with running first. If he could persist, then he could try other exercises. Lap after lap, Yu Xiaogang's throat felt dry and tight from continuous running. The air he inhaled felt like ice shards scraping his throat, while the exhaled breath carried a burning sensation. Sweat kept flowing down from his forehead, and his clothes stuck to his body. When the wind blew, it felt chilly, yet his body continued to heat up. This alternation of cold and heat was hard to endure. His steps became weaker, his body heavier, and his legs felt like they were filled with lead. Every time he lifted them, it strained his aching muscles. At this moment, how much Yu Xiaogang wanted to stop and rest, or crawl back into his warm bed for a good sleep. But thinking of his future, and how he would become an object of ridicule for others. Thinking that others would use him to mock Yu Yuanjun, Yu Xiaogang clenched his teeth and persevered through sheer willpower. All right. Yu Yuanjun, who had been watching Yu Xiaogang's movements, saw that he had reached his limit and called a halt to this morning's running training. Hearing Yu Yuanjun's voice, Yu Xiaogang collapsed to the ground almost immediately, without even the strength to move a finger. It's not bad. Yu Yuanjun praised him, but in reality, he was very surprised in his heart. He had originally thought Yu Xiaogang's words yesterday were just talk, and today's training would surely scare him off. But as it turned out, Yu Xiaogang had actually persevered. For 5-year-olds in ordinary families, or even older children, if they were trained like this, they would have gone crying to their parents long ago. But from beginning to end, Yu Xiaogang didn't say a single word about giving up. Even though his calves were trembling from running, he didn't stop. At this moment, Yu Yuanjun couldn't help but think of the offspring of the powerhouses he knew, such as the 2 sons of the Clear Sky sect's sect master. Those 2 had talent that was visible to the naked eye, but with his experienced eyes, how could Yu Yuanjun not see that the 2 brothers' heart nature was somewhat lacking due to the flattery of others? If not corrected, problems would arise for the 2 of them sooner or later. Thinking of this and looking at his son who was exhausted in a heap, Yu Yuanjun suddenly felt a sense of pride. Clear Sky Twins, HMPH, my son is not inferior to them at all. Black World, Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect. Yu Yuanjun stared blankly at himself in the heavenly curtain. The pride on the other's face was completely undisguised. He saw it clearly and understood exactly what the other was proud of. Putting himself in those shoes, if it were him, he would be just as proud. Both were Yu Yuanjun, with the same son Yu Xiaogang, yet the other's son was only 5 years old and could already consider him as his father. To avoid becoming a stain in his father's life, the other had proactively started to cultivate at the age of 5. And throughout the cultivation process, he didn't cry or make a fuss, nor did he give up. No matter how painful it was, he gritted his teeth and persevered until the end. This persistence and heart nature proved that his previous words were serious. He truly wanted to help the Yu Yuanjun of that world wash away the stain. Looking at the other's son and then thinking back to his own son, a sour taste spread in his mouth. Yu Yuanjun had never imagined that one day the object of his jealousy would actually be another version of himself. Both are sons, why is his son so good? Chapter 12, Martial Soul Awakening, the Changing Innate Soul Power. Yu Yuanjun's jealousy was unknown to outsiders. At this moment, however, almost every father with a son felt the same as Yu Yuanjun, envying the other for having such a sensible son. Recalling what their own sons were doing at age 5, they could only lament that comparisons are truly odious. The video continues. Having completed his first day's running task, Yu Xiaogang was so exhausted that he collapsed on the ground, unwilling to move a muscle. Seeing this, Yu Yuanjun stepped forward, took Yu Xiaogang into his arms, and walked toward a room that was constantly emitting steam. As a member of a great family, after completing basic training, a medicinal bath was indispensable. Through the medicinal bath, one could not only quickly recover energy and prevent injuries, but also further strengthen the body that had just been exercised. As the sect master of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, the resources Yu Yuanjun could mobilize were all top tier. Although he inevitably had to listen to the elders' nagging and complaints while mobilizing these resources, he was more than willing. His son was so sensible, worrying that poor talent would embarrass his father, so he began training even before his spirit had awakened. Under such circumstances, if he, as a father, didn't fully support his son, wouldn't he be failing his son's intentions? Arriving at the medicinal bathroom, Yu Yuanjun felt the water temperature, nodded in satisfaction, and then placed Yu Xiaogang into the water. Hiss, it's so hot. As soon as he entered the water, the scalding medicinal liquid stimulated Yu Xiaogang so much that he couldn't help but sit up. His grimacing expression made Yu Yuanjun burst into laughter. Ha ha ha, bear with it. After all, only this way can you better absorb the medicinal effects. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang immediately forced down his urge to get up and endured the pain, sitting still in the medicinal liquid. Soon, as the medicinal bath continued, and Yu Xiaogang adapted to the temperature, he felt the liquid stimulating his body again. Especially his legs, which were sore and swollen from running. Under the stimulation of the medicine, they alternated between aching and throbbing, causing Yu Xiaogang's expression to shift constantly, as if he were performing a face-changing act. Time passed minute by minute. Just as Yu Xiaogang thought he would have to stay in the water forever, Yu Yuanjun spoke. All right, you can come out now. Hearing these words, Yu Xiaogang felt as if he had been granted a grand pardon. He scrambled out of the water as fast as possible and looked back at the medicinal liquid with lingering fear. For the first time in his life, he felt that taking a bath was such a painful ordeal. How was it, if you still insist on cultivating, everything you did today will be your future routine? Yu Yuanjun's voice carried a hint of pressure. I can persevere. Without a second's hesitation, Yu Xiaogang said categorically. Very good, as expected of my son, Yu Yuanjun's son. Hearing Yu Xiaogang's words, Yu Yuanjun nodded with satisfaction and once again stroked Yu Xiaogang's head. With a son like this, how could he not feel gratified? In the morning, Yu Xiaogang completed his physical training and medicinal bath. In the afternoon, under Yu Yuanjun's guidance, he underwent meditation training. As a top-tier sect on the Douluo continent, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect naturally had its own exclusive meditation method. Unfortunately, the meditation method of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect was better suited for those who had awakened the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon spirit. At the very least, one needed a lightning attribute martial soul. Therefore, for now, Yu Xiaogang could only use a basic meditation method. Even so, the basic meditation method he used was far superior to the common versions circulated throughout the Douluo continent. Under Yu Yuanjun's guidance, Yu Xiaogang began to meditate. Through meditation, he absorbed the spirit power from heaven and earth into his body, converting it into his own spirit power. Unfortunately, because his spirit had not yet awakened, Yu Xiaogang felt no change after a session of meditation. He was exactly the same as before. However, Yu Xiaogang was not discouraged. If one could immediately notice changes after just a bit of meditation, it wouldn't be the case that cultivation on the Douluo continent only began after the martial soul awakening. After finishing his daytime cultivation, Yu Xiaogang used his evenings to study knowledge about the Douluo continent. Although Yu Yuanjun had told Yu Xiaogang much about the Douluo continent over the past 5 years, those were only superficial accounts. To gain a truly deep understanding, he had to study the books himself. During this learning process, Yu Xiaogang did not work in isolation. Whenever he encountered something he didn't understand, he would immediately ask Yu Yuanjun and then reflect on it himself. For example, Father, according to the family records, the maximum limit for obtaining a first soul ring is around 400 years, but some people fail even when absorbing a 300-year spirit ring. What do you think influences this? Yu Xiaogang asked, looking at Yu Yuanjun beside him. That's simple. The record for the highest limit was set by a genius of our Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, who possessed a beast spirit. Most beast spirits are born with powerful physiques, so the age of the spirit rings they can obtain can be higher. Tool spirits do not have the same advantages as our beast spirits in this regard. This holds true even for the Clear Sky Hammer, the world's #1 tool spirit. Yu Xiaogang said with a face full of pride. In other words, a strong physique is a necessary condition for obtaining high-age spirit rings. Yu Xiaogang silently noted this information and continued browsing through the sect's records. Over the next 6 months or so, Yu Xiaogang began his fulfilling daily routine. His actions, observed by the members of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, caused them to shake their heads frequently. He's rushing to cultivate before his spirit has even awakened. It seems his mind isn't fully clear yet. Just like that, the time for the martial soul awakening arrived. Because there were no particularly dazzling figures for this year's martial soul awakening, the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect did not hold a grand awakening ceremony. Perhaps Yu Xiaogang's status as the son of a titled Douluo made him dazzling enough, but due to his years of being in a daze, no one believed he could awaken any powerful spirit. And the reality was exactly as everyone had expected. As Yu Xiaogang stood in the center of the awakening formation, golden light enveloped him, and dragons roared, but then the light shattered with a bang. A small beast resembling a pig appeared at Yu Xiaogang's feet. Regarding this result, the crowd, who never held any expectations, naturally felt no disappointment. Only Yu Xiaogang, looking at his son in the awakening formation, had a deep worry flashing in his eyes. Then, during the innate soul power test, the final result was rank 1. The awakening ceremony belonging to Yu Xiaogang came to an end. Meanwhile, beneath the heavenly curtain, all the powers were in an uproar. Chapter 13 Tang San, So I Have Twin Trash Martial Souls. Black World Spirit Hall. Innate soul power, it can actually be changed. Bibi Dong gripped the scepter in her hand, staring in disbelief at the results of Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang's final test being shown on the heavenly curtain. Rank 1 innate soul power, someone like that, Bibi Dong wouldn't have even spared a glance at in the past. But when the person with this talent became Yu Xiaogang's counterpart, it was entirely different. Especially since Yu Xiaogang's original innate soul power should have been rank half. Bibi Dong didn't need to think deeply to understand what kind of impact this mere half-rank increase would have on the entire Douluo continent. It was absolutely revolutionary. And Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang's cultivation had only lasted for over half a year. Yet in just those 6 months, his original rank half-innate soul power had increased to rank 1. What if someone started cultivating from the age of 4? Or even more extremely, starting at 3 or 2 years old? Of course, that wasn't the most important part. What was truly important was that this revolutionary discovery would most benefit those from great powers who already had talent but lacked enough of it. For example, if a child who was supposed to awaken rank 7 or 8 innate soul power started cultivating early, could they awaken with full innate soul power at age 6? A difference of just 2 or 3 ranks might seem small, but it was like the difference between heaven and earth. It was the difference between having a chance to become a titled Douluo and being destined to become one. Glancing at her disciple Hu Liena below, Bibi Dong shook her head with some regret. It was a pity her disciple had already grown up. This discovery was basically useless for her. As for nurturing subordinate forces for the Spirit Hall, she had no intention of cultivating future talents for the Spirit Hall. The Spirit Hall was merely a blade in her hand, to expect her to maintain this blade properly. In their dreams. Because of Bibi Dong, the Spirit Hall didn't react much to this discovery, but the reactions of other forces were massive. 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Send down the orders. From now on, children who haven't awakened their spirits must also be arranged to cultivate. Have the trading firms collect medicinal herbs suitable for children to recover their bodies and nourish their physiques. Collect meditation methods as well. Buy back anything that can be used for meditation, and we will compare them slowly later. Everyone, get moving. You can watch the heavenly curtain on the way. In the main hall, Ning Fengzhai continuously issued orders to the members of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Once all the tasks were assigned, Ning Fengzhai finally had a chance to lean back in his chair and breathe a sigh of relief. Phew, I really didn't expect that cultivation before martial soul awakening would actually be useful. An excited expression appeared on the face of Bone Douluo Gurong. As a high-level member of a power, he knew all too well what kind of changes this information could bring to the sect. To put it bluntly, from now on, the full innate soul power that used to be seen only once in many years will appear frequently. There will no longer be a shortage of rank 7, 8, or 9 innate soul power. With so many geniuses, why would they worry about the sect not flourishing? It's just a pity for Rongrong. If we had known this before she awakened, she would probably have full innate soul power now. Beside him, Sword Douluo Chenzin had a look of regret. Enning Rongrong, whom he and the Bone Douluo doted on like a granddaughter, had rank 9 innate soul power, just a hair's breadth away from full innate soul power. If they had known earlier that innate soul power could be improved, they would have done whatever it took to help Ning Rongrong raise that final rank. Yes, it's a pity for Rongrong. The Bone Douluo also nodded, regretfully. On the other hand, Ning Fengzhai just smiled and said nothing. Not to mention that because of the inherent flaw of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda spirit, one could only cultivate to rank 79, making rank 9 innate soul power perfectly sufficient. Given how much the Bone Douluo and Sword Douluo doted on Ning Rongrong, would they really have let her start cultivating before her martial soul awakening? If Ning Rongrong had cried out in pain even twice, they probably would have rushed over in tears. Looking up at Yu Xiaogang on the heavenly curtain, Ning Fengzhai's eyes were filled with anticipation. He had a premonition that through the life of Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang, he could gain even more. I hope to find a way to evolve the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda into the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda. My parallel world self, you must establish a good relationship with the Yu Xiaogang over there. Shrek Academy. Looking at the result of rank 1 innate soul power on the heavenly curtain, Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang's lips were dry, and he was speechless for a long time. Innate soul power could actually be changed. If before his own martial soul awakening, he hadn't spent all day basking in the praise of his family members, getting lost in the repeated calls of young sect master. Would he also have started cultivating early like the Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang on the heavenly curtain and gained a better talent? At this moment, Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang began to regret everything he had done in the past. Of course, as someone, don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. Skilled at finding excuses, Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang wouldn't attribute all the blame to himself. So besides himself, who else was wrong? That's right, it was his father, Yu Yuanzhen. It was all his fault. If not for him, he wouldn't have been flattered by the people in the sect, and he wouldn't have become so deeply entrenched in it. Without sycophants around him, he would have studied and researched spirits. With his level of research, wouldn't discovering these things have been easy? Yes, that's it, it's all father's fault. Having found an excuse, Yu Xiaogang easily comforted himself, shifting all his hatred onto Yu Yuanzhen, with whom his relationship had long since ruptured. On the other side, Tang San raised his hand and touched his chest. Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang's discovery suddenly reminded him of his daily cultivation routine before his martial soul awakening. He had been persistently cultivating the mysterious heaven skill since he could remember. So maybe I wasn't originally born with full innate soul power, but rather achieved it through cultivating the mysterious heaven skill. Understanding this, Tang San raised his right hand and subconsciously summoned his blue-silver grass spirit. Looking at it this way, my blue-silver grass spirit really is a trash martial soul. Tang San was a bit dazed. Before this, he had always thought he was a genius. But he could never figure out the trash martial soul that was blue-silver grass. After all, pairing a trash martial soul with full innate soul power was indeed illogical. He used to think everything was as his teacher said, that the reason he had full innate soul power was because of the hammer spirit in his left hand. Now it seemed that the trash martial soul was logical. He didn't have much talent naturally, and all his talent had been improved through acquired cultivation. In that case, the hammer in my left hand is probably also a trash martial soul, just like the blue-silver grass. Two trash martial souls, that seems even more logical. True, how could a blacksmith living in a small village give birth to a top-tier genius? As expected, even after transmigrating, the things from the Tang sect are still what I rely on. At this moment, Tang San had an epiphany. Forget the Douluo continent. What he learned at the Tang sect before his rebirth was much more useful. Chapter 14, Bibai Dong fiercely protects her husband. White World Spirit Hall. Kid, why have you never mentioned such an important matter before? Gold Crocodile Douluo's eyes widened as he looked at Yu Xiaogang. This was something that could overturn the understanding of everyone on the Douluo continent. Grandpa Golden Crocodile, Xiaogang didn't know what level of innate soul power he was supposed to awaken. As the son of a titled Douluo, it was already so difficult for Xiaogang to awaken with level 1 innate soul power. Are you still blaming him for not noticing such a small detail? Bibi Dong bristled upon hearing Gold Crocodile Douluo question Yu Xiaogang. Seeing her husband's innate soul power, which was awakened in the heavenly curtain, was only level 1. Especially seeing the look of disappointment on Yu Xiaogang's face at that time, Bibi Dong's heart shattered. She deeply regretted not being by her husband's side back then, leaving him to endure such pain alone. She couldn't imagine what kind of mockery Yu Xiaogang, with only level 1 innate soul power, must have faced. How much effort he must have put in afterward to achieve a heaven-defying change of fate. And at this moment, not only did Gold Crocodile Douluo not comfort Xiaogang, but he also spoke to him in such a harsh tone. Bibi Dong could not tolerate any of this. Are you still a member of our spirit hall or not? Gold Crocodile Douluo was somewhat exasperated by Bibi Dong's retort and spoke. Of course I'm a member of Spirit Hall, but I'm also Xiaogang's wife. Is it wrong for me to care for my husband? Bibi Dong said with a strong expression. Gold Crocodile Douluo wanted to say more, but just then, Qian Dailiu's hand rested on his shoulder. All right, these are all minor matters. After all this arguing, it's still not too late now that we know. Qian Dailiu glanced at Bibi Dong and shook his head at Gold Crocodile Douluo. He couldn't bear to watch. How did he not realize back then that Bibi Dong was the kind of person who would lose her mind when in love? With Qian Dailiu's intervention, Bibi Dong finally gave up. She still held great respect for him. Glaring at Gold Crocodile Douluo, Bibi Dong went to Yu Xiaogang's side, took his hand, and spoke in a voice so gentle it was as if she hadn't just been arguing with Gold Crocodile Douluo. Xiaogang, are you all right? If seeing these things makes you uncomfortable, then we won't watch them. Hearing Bibi Dong's words, Yu Xiaogang clasped her hands in return. There's nothing uncomfortable about it, just some past hardships. Looking back at these things as I am now, I only feel how quickly time has flown. Yu Xiaogang wasn't lying about this. Since his transmigration to the Douluo continent, the time he had lived here already exceeded the time he had lived on Earth. The Douluo continent had become his home. Even if he were to return to Earth now, he couldn't. The film continues. Still in the place where Yu Yuanzhen often accompanied Yu Xiaogang, who was still in a foolish state. Yu Xiaogang, who had completed his martial soul awakening, summoned his spirit. A small beast resembling a piglet lay on Yu Xiaogang's legs, its large eyes innocent yet lively. For this detached spirit that had its own thoughts, Yu Xiaogang temporarily named it Little Dragon. Although Little Dragon resembled a piglet, Yu Xiaogang didn't think it was just a pig. His father possessed the blue lightning tyrant dragon spirit, and Yu Xiaogang also learned through his father that his deceased mother also had a dragon-type spirit. With such parents, there was no reason for his spirit to be a pig. Combining the dazzling golden light and dragon roar that his spirit emitted at the very beginning of its awakening, Yu Xiaogang could basically conclude that Little Dragon must be a powerful dragon-type spirit. It was he, with his innate soul power of only level 1, or perhaps even less than level 1, who was limiting it. An unprecedented detached spirit, possessing its own thoughts, such a special you, yet you followed someone as untalented as me. Yu Xiaogang stroked little dragon's head, his voice filled with emotion. Raw. Little dragon, feeling very comfortable from the petting, rubbed its head against Yu Xiaogang's palm, as if it didn't mind at all that Yu Xiaogang's talent prevented it from displaying its power. Thump, thump, thump. Just then, a series of footsteps sounded. Yu Xiaogang turned his head to see Yu Yuanzhen, who looked worried. Xiaogang, are you all right? Yu Yuanzhen's voice was very soft, somewhat cautious. He was afraid his son would be sad because of the awakening ceremony. I'm fine, father. Shaking his head, Yu Xiaogang did not show a sad expression. It's you, father. With my martial soul awakening like this, I'm afraid many people will use me to mock you in the future. This was what Yu Xiaogang cared about most now. Ha, what's there to worry about? Your father is a titled Douluo. Throughout the entire Douluo continent, only those who are also titled Douluo are qualified to mock me. But how many such people are there on the entire continent? Not to mention, among those who can cultivate to titled Douluo, not many are truly foolish individuals. Few people would provoke a titled Douluo for no reason. Yu Yuanzhen laughed easily, as if things were truly as he said. But Yu Xiaogang wasn't deaf or blind. Just during the martial soul awakening ceremony, he had seen many people cast mocking glances at him. Such gazes would also fall upon Yu Yuanzhen. This was still within the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Outside the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, such mockery would be infinitely more intense. Especially those who had grievances and deep hatred with Yu Yuanzhen. They would laugh wildly and continuously spread negative information throughout the Douluo continent. Many times, a person's reputation is tarnished in this way. Father, given my current situation, what level do you think is my cultivation limit? Yu Xiaogang suddenly asked. Do you want to hear the truth? Yu Yuanzhen looked at his son, who, despite being muddled for 5 years, was exceptionally intelligent. Although it might be cruel to say this so early, he knew that even if he didn't say it, Yu Xiaogang would find out through various means. Yes, and I want the worst-case scenario. Yu Xiaogang's voice was very firm. Only by knowing his worst situation could he plan accordingly. The worst-case scenario is if your first soul ring and second spirit ring both go wrong, and you choose spirit rings that are not suitable for you. Yu Yuanzhen's expression became much more serious. If that happens, level 30 might be the biggest hurdle in your life. Chapter 15, The Path of Spirit Evolution, Ultimate Attribute Stacking. Rank 30 is the biggest hurdle of one's life. Having identified his greatest future obstacle, the next step was to find a way to break through it. While cases of people with very low talent ultimately achieving extraordinary success are extremely rare on the Douluo continent, they are not non-existent. By looking through the records in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's library, Yu Xiaogang learned that these cases of defying fate were essentially due to these individuals obtaining heaven-defying opportunities. And these heaven-defying opportunities were divided into 2 types. The first is the most well-known treasure, spirit bones. One case recorded a child with only rank 1 innate soul power who got lost deep in the Stardew Great Forest. However, he turned a misfortune into a blessing by obtaining a 10,000-year soul bone from a 10,000-year soul beast that had fought another spirit beast to the death. By absorbing that spirit bone, the child's spirit underwent some changes, thereby breaking his shackles and defying fate. The second method was relying on heaven and earth treasures to change one's fate. This case recorded a child of noble birth who also had rank 1 innate soul power. The other party obtained a heaven and earth treasure from the Stardew Great Forest through an auction. By consuming that heaven and earth treasure, the noble's spirit evolved, thus achieving a reversal. To be honest, Yu Xiaogang only treated these 2 solutions as stories. First, regarding spirit bones, even in the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, one of the upper 3 sects, the entire sect only possessed a few. For instance, Yu Xiaogang's father, Yu Yuanzhen, despite being a titled Douluo, did not have a full set of spirit bones on his body. This shows how rare spirit bones are. Therefore, wanting to change fate through a spirit bone was something not even Yu Xiaogang himself would allow, let alone other members of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Compared to his own ethereal and unknown future, Yu Yuanzhen's established titled Douluo strength was far more reliable. As for heaven and earth treasures, they were even rarer than spirit bones. After all, people on the Douluo continent at least know where spirit bones come from. As for those heaven and earth treasures, it's purely down to luck. Yu Xiaogang was not discouraged by failing to find a method to defy his fate in the books. He had long expected not to find anything. It would have been strange if he had. Even so, through these two methods, Yu Xiaogang discovered a train of thought for defying fate. Whether it was absorbing a spirit bone or consuming a heaven and earth treasure, the final changes formed in those with poor talent were all reflected in their spirits. Whether it was causing a spirit to change or causing a spirit to evolve, both could drive a change in talent. In other words, finding a way to make the spirit evolve will allow me to defy fate. Black World 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Indeed, finding a way to make a spirit evolve can defy fate, but how difficult it is to find such a method. Enning Fengzhai was amazed that the Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang, at such a young age, had figured out exactly what needed to be done to defy fate based on just a few cases. At the same time, he sighed at how the 4 words defying fate were so easy to say yet so difficult to do. The 7 treasure glazed tile schools, 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda spirit, could be said to have troubled generation after generation of the school's members. With only the ability to attach 7 spirit rings, the 7 treasure glazed tile school was already the #1 support spirit on the Douluo continent. They didn't dare imagine what level their support capabilities could reach if the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda could continue to improve. For this dream, generation after generation of members of the 7 treasure glazed tile school had been trying to find a way to evolve the 7 treasure glazed tile pagoda into the 9 treasure glazed tile pagoda. Unfortunately, no matter how they tried, they could never obtain a result. I just wonder how this Dragon God Douluo actually defied his fate, and whether his method would be suitable for our 7 treasure glazed tile school. Enning Fengzhai's heart was full of anticipation. The video continues. Knowing that as long as the spirit evolves, one can defy fate, the next step was to look for cases of spirit evolution. Records in this regard were actually quite abundant. Some people evolved after absorbing a single spirit ring. Some people evolved once their rank reached a certain level. There were also some who cultivated normally and then suddenly evolved. In summary, spirit evolution seemed completely trackless. However, Yu Xiaogang did not believe that all of this was truly without a trace. So Yu Xiaogang brought over paper and pen, drew up a table, and listed all the examples of spirit evolution on record. Douluo continent, it's time for you to witness the power of statistics. After listing all the examples of spirit evolution in the table, Yu Xiaogang then categorized these evolution methods into several types. The first major category, which was also the most numerous, consisted of records where evolution was completed after absorbing a certain spirit ring. The second major category was natural evolution after cultivating to a certain rank. The third major category consisted of very rare cases like bloodline awakening. The fourth major category was spirit evolution, resulting from various inexplicable factors. Having completed this step of statistics, Yu Xiaogang took a simple glance and set aside all materials except for the first major category. To him, the subsequent categories were not applicable. What could truly work for him was the first category, absorbing a spirit ring to achieve spirit evolution. Having filtered out the method he could use, Yu Xiaogang began to further subdivide this category. For example, even for spirit evolution, whose spirit was a tool spirit and whose was a beast spirit. For a beast spirit, what kind of soul beast spirit ring was absorbed, what were its attributes, what was the situation with the previous spirit rings, and what were their ages. For a tool spirit, what kind of soul beast was absorbed, what were its attributes, and so on. In short, Yu Xiaogang performed an extremely detailed classification of these cases, striving to ensure that not a single clue escaped his eyes. Under such detailed classification, Yu Xiaogang really did find a lot of useful information. Green snake, the first 5 spirit rings were all poison attribute. Upon obtaining the 6th spirit ring, the spirit evolved into the jasper poisonous snake. Ember's hound, the first 3 spirit rings were all fire attribute. After obtaining the 4th spirit ring, the spirit evolved into the blazing hound. Ice crystal bird, the first 4 spirit rings were all ice attribute. After obtaining the 5th spirit ring, the spirit evolved into the frigid ice bird. Thorny grass, the first 4 spirit rings were all from plant-type soul beasts. Upon obtaining the 5th spirit ring, the spirit evolved into the thorny leaf vine. Ground lizard, the first 7 spirit rings were all from dragon-type spirit beasts. Upon obtaining the 8th spirit ring, the spirit evolved into the crimson heart earth dragon. Knighthood. Countless examples were presented before Yu Xiaogang through detailed statistics. And through these examples, Yu Xiaogang easily found a path for spirit evolution. Ultimate attribute stacking. Chapter 16, the exceptional 4 single attribute clans. Through the statistics and listing of various data in the tables, Dragon God Douluo Yu Xiaogang presented them completely before everyone on the Douluo continent. Such clear data allowed even the farmers who worked in the fields all day to understand the significance of this information. Ordinary people merely marveled at the data. But those from major powers with extraordinary vision stood up one after another at this moment, looking at the tables in Yu Xiaogang's hands with shocked expressions. Black World 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Fengzhai this. Bone Douluo looked at Ning Fengzhai, his gaze sharp. I know, Uncle Gu. Ning Fengzhai's eyes were fixed intently on the tables Yu Xiaogang had drawn within the heavenly curtain. Pieces of information were neatly arranged. He could examine whichever information was useful to him. Through this information, he could precisely extract the key points from the data. With these key points, he could simplify what was originally complex information and then discover the secrets hidden within. Ning Fengzhai had never heard of or seen such a method of information processing. But as the sect master of the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School, he could easily judge how much easier handling matters would become with such a method. For example, Yu Xiaogang's search for a method of spirit evolution in the images. By listing a large number of spirit evolution examples and then conducting a unified comparison. And then extracting numerous examples with similar circumstances from them. With almost no effort, he deduced what needed to be done for spirit evolution. With such a method to assist him, plus the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sect's database, what secrets could he possibly fail to discover? Ning Fengzhai said in a deep voice. He could already sense the coming storm on the Douluo continent. This wasn't just a random guess, but one supported by solid data. And this is just a method that Dragon God Douluo used casually. For a mere 6-year-old child to come up with such a way, terrifying. Sword Douluo Chen remained silent for a moment, then spoke. He didn't usually praise people easily, but the Yu Xiaogang in the heavenly curtain was worthy of his praise. Having the same sentiments as the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School were Spirit Hall, the Clear Sky Sect, the Heaven Dew Empire, and various other powers. Any power with insightful individuals could see how useful the statistical methods Yu Xiaogang used were. Of course, not everyone's focus was on the statistical methods. Sunset Forest, Ice and Fire Yin Yang Well. Extreme attribute stacking, so that's how it is. Watching the spirit evolution method Yu Xiaogang analyzed through the data in the heavenly curtain, the poisoned Douluo Dugubo showed an expression of sudden realization. He recalled his own cultivation process, from the Jade Phosphor Serpent at the beginning of his awakening to the current Jade Phosphor Serpent Emperor. He had indeed followed the path of extreme attribute stacking. It was also during this process that his spirit evolved. So, according to Yu Xiaogang's data in the heavenly curtain, if Yan Yan wants to cultivate her spirit to the Jade Phosphor Serpent Emperor like me, she also needs to continuously stack poison attributes. Dugubo thought while resting his chin on his hand, but soon he felt a bit discouraged again. Stacking poison attributes could indeed evolve their family's jade phosphor serpent martial soul, but the flaws of their own spirit were something he had to consider. He was able to evolve into the jade phosphor serpent emperor and cultivate into a titled Douluo, but his granddaughter Dugu Yan might not necessarily be able to do the same. If they continued down this path, he feared that sooner or later he would have to see his granddaughter off, just as he had seen his son off. This was something he absolutely did not want to see. Perhaps I could have Yan Yang give up poison and focus on adding snake-type spirit rings to the jade phosphor serpent. Dugu Bo began to ponder other paths in his heart. In a similar situation to Dugu Bo was the Five Elements Academy. Specializing in one element for extreme training was the philosophy that the Five Elements Academy had always adhered to. And now, this philosophy had received even more tangible validation with the support of Yu Xiaogang's data in the Heavenly Curtain. I've been thinking back, and it seems our Five Elements Academy really has had many students whose spirits evolved. Yeah, didn't Blazing Academy have an example of spirit evolution just 2 years ago? And even earlier, Tianshui Academy had one too. Hahaha, with the data provided by the Heavenly Curtain, I dare say that the number of students coming to our Divine Wind Academy next year will definitely skyrocket. HMPH, let's see who dares to look down on those of us who follow the extreme path from now on. We are the ones on the right track. Later. Of course, not everyone held a trusting attitude toward Yu Xiaogang's data. Within the clan grounds of the Strength Clan, one of the 4 single-attribute clans, the 4 clan chiefs were gathered together. But at this moment, all 4 clan chiefs were frowning. This data is unreliable. Clearly we follow extreme attribute stacking as well, so why has our spirit never evolved? Niu Gao, the clan chief of the defense clan, said, HMPH, can the words of a mere child really be taken seriously, old rhino? You're really regressing as you get older. Beside him, Tai Tan, the clan chief of the Strength Clan, curled his lip in disdain. How could spirit evolution be that simple? If he could find the right method so easily, wouldn't we have all lived all these years in vain? Hearing this, Bai He, the clan chief of the Speed Clan, nodded. Their Speed Clan had pursued extreme speed from beginning to end, yet their spirit was always the needle-tailed swift, and they hadn't seen a single clansman evolve. The only one who hadn't spoken was Yang Wudi, the clan chief of the Breaking Clan. He just stared blankly at the Heavenly Curtain, looking lost in thought. The video continues. Having concluded that to achieve spirit evolution, one must follow the path of extreme attribute stacking, Yu Xiaogang immediately thought of the powers on the Douluo continent that followed this school of thought. Taking out the data on the 5 Elements Academy, sure enough, Yu Xiaogang once again found numerous examples of spirit evolution. These examples undoubtedly corroborated his hypothesis. However, when Yu Xiaogang opened the files on the 4 single-attribute families, who also followed the extreme path, their situation made him frown. The next day, Father, what do you think is the difference between a spirit master's elements like fire, water and lightning, and attributes like strength, defense and speed? Yu Xiaogang asked Yu Yuanzhen for advice. Ask when you don't know. With a titled Douluo for a father, Yu Xiaogang wouldn't try to figure out every problem on his own. What's the difference? Compared to fire, water and lightning, aren't attributes like strength, speed and defense more fundamental? By the way, Xiaogang, why are you asking this? Yu Yuanzhen thought for a moment and said. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang presented the data he had obtained through statistics before Yu Yuanzhen. Then he brought out the information on the 4 single-attribute families. Regarding spirit evolution, I seem to have touched upon the threshold, but now there's the exception of the 4 single-attribute families. I need to figure out why they are the exception. Yu Xiaogang said while flipping through the data. Meanwhile, Yu Yuanzhen looked at the data organized by Yu Xiaogang with a face full of shock, amazed in his heart that such a method actually existed. After the shock passed, Yu Yuanzhen also fell into deep thought. Indeed. Why could stacking attributes like wind, fire, lightning and ice lead to spirit evolution, while strength and speed could not? Chapter 17. Changes in spirit origin and increases in numerical values. Why is it that stacking elemental attributes like wind, fire, thunder, and ice can cause a spirit to evolve, and even when adding new spirit rings to a spirit, choosing only one type of spirit beast can also lead to evolution, yet things like strength and speed don't work. Yu Xiaogang listed these different attributes out. If I were to categorize these attributes, then attributes like wind and thunder can be classified as elemental attributes. Strength, speed, and defense can be classified as basic attributes. Dragon, tiger, and bear refer to different types of spirits. As for their classification, they should be bloodline attributes. After listing the 3 different types of attributes, Yu Xiaogang fell into deep thought. Right then Yu Yuanzhen suddenly spoke up. Since your line of thought is that attribute stacking can cause a spirit to evolve, why don't you consider what changes occur during this stacking process? Hearing Yu Yuanzhen's words, Yu Xiaogang's eyes lit up. He immediately took out a piece of paper. The continuous stacking of elemental attributes, like the fire element, can increase the temperature and power of the flames, and even release more powerful exotic fires. The stacking of bloodline attributes can strengthen the bloodline. For instance, a snake can transform into a flood dragon, or even a dragon. But basic attributes like strength, it seems that stacking them only results in numerical values, without that kind of very obvious qualitative change. Yu Xiaogang wrote faster and faster, his thoughts flowing more smoothly, as if he had discovered a fundamental truth. Spirit evolution is a qualitative leap for the spirit. It's when the essence of the spirit undergoes a certain degree of change. A spirit that could originally only breathe out cold air becoming a spirit that releases ice. This is a change that touches the spirit's origin. The same goes for the stacking of bloodline attributes. From a snake to a flood dragon, the essence of the spirit has changed. But attributes like strength and speed, even if they are stacked until the strength becomes 10 or 100 times stronger, will not cause the essence of the spirit to change. What they change is merely the numerical value. As he finished his last stroke, Yu Xiaogang was deeply satisfied, while Yu Yuanzhen, watching from the side, was dumbfounded. Although what Yu Xiaogang wrote was just his reflections, Yu Yuanzhen was a titled Douluo after all, and he possessed a profound understanding of the spirit system. The moment Yu Xiaogang finished writing these things, he could be certain that they were correct. Black World, the 4 single attribute clans. Crack! The sound of a cup falling and shattering on the floor echoed in the room, but at this moment, no one cared about such things anymore. The clan chiefs of the 4 single attribute clans stared blankly at the image on the heavenly curtain, where Yu Yuanzhen was continuously praising Yu Xiaogang, a feeling of suffocation spreading through their chests. So that's how it is. Yang Wudi murmured to himself. As a clever man, Yang Wudi understood after just a bit of thought. Take Baihe's family's needle-tailed swift as an example. The core of the needle-tailed swift spirit is the needle-tailed swift itself, while speed is merely the advantage of this spirit. If they added spirit rings from bird-type spirit beasts to the needle-tailed swift spirit, perhaps the needle-tailed swift bloodline could be changed, leading to evolution. But speed, no matter how much it's stacked, only increases the numerical value and won't change the essence of the spirit in the slightest. Having realized this, Yang Wudi thought about his own family's spirit, the soul-breaking spear. Previously, the Yang family had always added attack-type spirit rings to the soul-breaking spear, pursuing ultimate offensive power. But after seeing Yu Xiaogang's research, Yang Wudi suddenly wanted his descendants to make a change. The path of bloodline stacking was impossible for their Yang family, but they could take the path of elemental stacking. For example, adding the fire attribute or the thunder attribute to the soul-breaking spear. Thinking about it this way, it actually seems quite good. Yang Wudi stroked his chin, deciding in his heart to give this matter some serious thought later. As for the other 3 clan chiefs, their moods weren't quite as good, especially Baihe's. As the clan chief of the Bai family, he had always been proud of his family's needle-tailed swift spirit, because they possessed the fastest speed in their entire Douluo continent. Even though the prerequisite for having this speed was their lack of offensive capability. And now, the heavenly curtain was telling him that they had taken the wrong path. By adding speed-type spirit rings, their family's spirit would never have the possibility of evolving. This blow was no less than a fundamental negation of their existence. That mere brat, I will never accept his ideas. Raising a trembling hand, Baihe pointed at Yu Xiaogang on the heavenly curtain and spoke through gritted teeth. I don't accept it either. Our 4 clans have passed down our legacy for so many years. How can the experience accumulated over all those years be shaken by just a few words from him? Tai Tan was the first to stand up and support Baihe. He had already made up his mind. Even if Yu Xiaogang in the heavenly curtain eventually became a titled Douluo, and even if his theories were described as incredibly brilliant, his strength clan would absolutely never accept them. The video continues. Having clarified how to make a spirit evolve, Yu Xiaogang's next step was to choose the right path for himself. His spirit, Xiao Long, had undergone a malignant mutation because his own talent was insufficient. What should have been a blue lightning, tyrant dragon, had mutated into this appearance. Yu Xiaogang couldn't be sure if its elemental attribute was still the thunder attribute. In any case, after a lot of effort, Yu Xiaogang failed to detect even a trace of an elemental attribute from Xiao Long. Thus, the path Yu Xiaogang could choose was very clear. Adding spirit rings from dragon-type spirit beasts to Xiao Long, and the purer the dragon, the better. Only through the baptism of dragon blood might Xiao Long truly reveal its original form. But there is still one problem, which is that if I just follow the rules and absorb spirit rings, even if all my spirit rings are from pure-blooded dragon-type spirit beasts, my talent isn't enough to support me going very far. Yu Xiaogang propped up his chin. Innate level 1 soul power, this innate soul power was still too great a restriction for Yu Xiaogang. Therefore, if I want to truly change my fate against the heavens, besides performing extreme attribute stacking in my choice of spirit ring attributes, I must also break convention regarding the age of the spirit rings I obtain. Having determined the plan he would execute in the future, the first thing Yu Xiaogang thought of were those cases where people were severely injured or even died instantly because they absorbed spirit rings whose age exceeded the limits they could withstand. Each of these cases told Yu Xiaogang that this was not a path that could be attempted easily. But he recalled the mocking gazes cast his way by the family members watching during the awakening ceremony, and the comments he had heard within the family over these past few days, calling him a dog son of a tiger father, and even the words that directly poked fun at Yu Yuanzhen. At the thought of these things, Yu Xiaogang's fists tightened involuntarily. Consequently, the slight hesitation that had been flickering in his eyes was quickly replaced by determination. So what if it's just a matter of being severely injured, or even facing the risk of death? If he didn't even dare to face this bit of danger, on what basis could he change his fate against the heavens? Chapter 18 Grandmaster. I'm putting it out there, 423 years is the limit for the first soul ring. Of course, while that was being said, Yu Xiaogang wouldn't just directly go and absorb a spirit ring with an age far exceeding the limit of what he could endure. At this moment, he recalled the conclusion he had reached when he first studied the knowledge of the Douluo continent and saw the age limit for obtaining the first soul ring. A strong physique is a necessary condition for obtaining high-age spirit rings. Spirit masters with beast spirits can obtain spirit rings of a higher age than those with tool spirits. Following this line of thought, did it mean that as long as a spirit master's physique was strong enough, the age of the first soul ring they could obtain could increase infinitely? Black World Shrek Academy. Pure nonsense, absolute rubbish. Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang shouted angrily at the heavenly curtain. What do you mean it can keep increasing as long as the physique is strong enough? Do you think human endurance has no upper limit? Misleading the younger generation, simply misleading the younger generation. I'm putting it out there today. The endurance limit for the first soul ring is 423 years. No one can exceed this number. After a spray of spit and angry rebukes, Grandmaster Yu Xiaogang looked at the assembled Shrek 7 devils. All right, stop watching. Looking at these things is fundamentally meaningless. If you watch too much, it will only confuse the knowledge you have already learned. Everyone go train. The Grandmaster's voice was firm and confident. He did not believe that the Yu Xiaogang in the heavenly curtain could obtain a spirit ring that exceeded his own theoretical limit. Even if he could become a titled Douluo, it must have been because he broke conventions in other areas. Breaking the age limit of a spirit ring. No one could possibly do that. In this regard, he was the absolute authority. Hearing the Grandmaster's words, although he was very curious about the heavenly curtain, Tang Sen rushed out to start running almost immediately. He trusted the Grandmaster most, so he also believed in the Grandmaster's judgment. Seeing Tang Sen rush out, Xiao Wu quickly followed by Zhu Zhuqing, Daimyu Bai, Oscar, and Ma Hongjun. When the last person, Ma Hongjun, went to run, Ning Rongrong was the only one left at the scene. Ning Rongrong, why aren't you running? The Grandmaster questioned her with a deep frown. I want to watch the content of the heavenly curtain to the end. Ning Rongrong glanced at Yu Xiaogang, her voice full of disdain. You want to defy my orders? The Grandmaster raised his voice. Yu Xiaogang, who do you think you are to dare say you're ordering this young miss? The heavenly curtain has clearly stated that it shows the experiences of the Dragon God Douluo. Why wouldn't I believe the experiences of a titled Douluo, and instead believe a trash like you, who can't even break through rank 29? Ning Rongrong truly lived up to her reputation as a little witch. She didn't give the Grandmaster any face at all. You! His defenses shattered, the Grandmaster clenched his fists, his eyes bloodshot, breathing heavily like an ox. He really wanted to slap Ning Rongrong's face right now to teach this person, who didn't know how to respect teachers, a good lesson. But unfortunately, he didn't dare. Ning Rongrong was the young miss of the 7 treasure glazed tile school and the apple of the eye of the sword and bone Douluos. If he dared to lay a hand on her, this time next year would be the anniversary of his death. In the end, Yu Xiaogang suppressed his rage, gave a cold snort, and let Ning Rongrong stay where she was to watch. The video continues. Although the idea was there, how exactly should it be done? A person's body cannot become stronger for no reason. Training was something Yu Xiaogang would certainly persist in day and night from now on, but there were countless people who persisted in daily training. Slow down the time for obtaining the first soul ring to let the body grow more. Yu Xiaogang shook his head. The golden age for a spirit master to cultivate is before the age of 20, and he was already a step behind others because of his innate level 1 soul power. Where would he get so much time to wait for his body to grow on its own? In other words, there was only one way. Pill popping. As a transmigrator, Yu Xiaogang had read novels before his transmigration, so he knew very well that when transmigrating to Xuanhuan world, pill popping was an essential part of the experience. However, after being in the Douluo continent for so long, Yu Xiaogang had also learned a lot of knowledge about this world, and he discovered that heaven and earth treasures were extremely rare. One could even say they were non-existent. In any case, the information Yu Xiaogang found regarding heaven and earth treasures was basically all legends and stories. Regardless of whether they exist or not, I'll go take a look first. Having made up his mind, Yu Xiaogang informed Yu Yuanzhen and then left the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. As one of the upper 3 sects of the Douluo continent, the area near the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect naturally had a city that belonged exclusively to the sect. Just like the 7 treasure city of the 7 treasure glazed tile school and the Clear Sky City of the Clear Sky sect, Blue Lightning City was such a city. The city was lined with shops, and all kinds of resources gathered here, creating a scene of bustling crowds. Arriving at Blue Lightning City, Yu Xiaogang ignored the prosperous surroundings and went directly to the largest medicine shop in the city, Thunder Dragon Hall. Uncle Yi, you still look as energetic as ever. Coming to the counter, Yu Xiaogang greeted the middle-aged man busy behind it. Uncle Yi's original name was Yi Hengchuan. He was a friend his father Yu Yuanzhen had made in his youth. He later chose to follow Yu Yuanzhen, and as he grew older, he was arranged by Yu Yuanzhen to have this leisurely retirement position. Oh, it's Xiaogang, what a rare guest, come and sit. Seeing Yu Xiaogang, Yi Hengchuan immediately broke into a smile. As a follower and also a good friend of Yu Yuanzhen, Yi Hengchuan was one of the few people who wouldn't look at Yu Xiaogang with colored glasses. Although he also regretted that Yu Xiaogang lacked talent, if Yu Yuanzhen, the father, didn't say anything, it wasn't for others to gossip. Uncle Yi, I've come this time because I want to consult you. If I want to strengthen my physique, what kind of medicinal herbs should I use? Yu Xiaogang directly stated his purpose. Medicinal herbs to strengthen the physique. Are you planning to properly temper your body and then obtain a spirit ring of a higher age? Yi Hengchuan was indeed an old hand in the Jianghu. Just hearing Yu Xiaogang's purpose, he understood his plan. That's right, my talent isn't very good, but I'm not willing to just sit and wait for death. Yu Xiaogang said with a serious expression. Good, as expected of brother Yu's son, you should have this kind of unyielding spirit. Hearing Yu Xiaogang's words, and especially seeing his expression, Yi Hengchuan immediately slapped the table and stood up. In his view, it was fine if one's talent was poor, as long as one was willing to work hard. Even if the final result was unsatisfactory, at least one had tried. Wait here, I'll go get the register. With brother Yu and me here, we'll definitely help you polish your body's foundation well. When the time comes for you to obtain a spirit ring, we'll have you get one around 400 years old directly. Yi Hengchuan was about to go get the register. It was at this moment that several young men with unsteady steps walked in. Boss Yi, has the stock we wanted arrived? The brothers have been waiting for a long time. Hearing this voice, Yi Hengchuan stopped in his tracks, a strange smile appearing on his face. Don't worry, it's all here. The quality of this batch of goods is good enough for you all to use. He, then I'll take your word for it. Today I'm going to fight until dawn. A smile that every man would understand also appeared on the young man's face. Watching the interaction between Yi Hengchuan and these people, Yu Xiaogang helplessly picked up his teacup. He was also a man, so he naturally understood what they were talking about. Honestly, they're already so physically drained, yet they still want to fight until dawn. Suddenly, Yu Xiaogang's hand holding the teacup froze in midair. Chapter 19. Why do the pigs scream in the middle of the night? Yu Xiaogang's hand holding a teacup froze midair. His gaze turned toward the young men who were sharing a men-only smile with Yi Hengchuan. Their steps were unsteady, their limbs weak, and their muscles flabby. They yawned from time to time, with large dark circles under their eyes. No matter how one looked at them, these people were extremely frail. Yet they had the audacity to boast about fighting until dawn. The implication behind this left Yu Xiaogang with no choice but to ponder deeply. Black World Spirit Hall. What's there to ponder? To actually want to research such things, this fellow doesn't deserve the name Yu Xiaogang at all. Bibi Dong looked at the Yu Xiaogang on the heavenly curtain and saw that he had actually developed an interest in such things. She immediately wore an expression of disgust. Seeing the anger on her teacher's face, Hu Liena, who was standing below, swallowed the question she had been about to ask. However, she soon looked toward Chrysanthemum Douluo Yu Guan nearby. Elder Yu Guan, what exactly are they talking about? Hu Liena asked with an innocent face. Forgive her, for she truly did not know about these things. As someone who had been taken in as a disciple by Bibi Dong early on, Hu Liena's daily routine basically consisted of cultivating and studying, over and over again. This, glancing at Bibi Dong above, the Chrysanthemum Douluo eventually gave a mysterious smile. This, you'll naturally find out if you keep watching. Black World Shrek Academy. HMPH, his true colors are showing, aren't they? Instead of researching proper spirit theories, he's only thinking about crooked paths. Does a person like that even deserve to be compared to me, Yu Xiaogang? At this moment, Yu Xiaogang's back was straighter than it had ever been. He could already imagine the scene where the Yu Xiaogang on the heavenly curtain would lose all face once he started researching those things. On the other side, Zhao Wuji approached Flender and said in a low voice, Flender, you used to be a merchant. Do you think Yu Xiaogang's idea on the heavenly curtain is reliable? If it is, we should go out and stock up while we still have the chance to make a huge profit. Hearing this, Flender's eyes instantly widened. Since it involved making money, he had to think it over carefully. But soon, Flender shook his head. Those drugs with enchantment effects can indeed make the body stronger when used. But their efficacy is limited. For example, Those people on the heavenly curtain clearly use these things often, yet their bodies haven't become stronger. It's likely a mistaken attempt. Flender's words made Xiao Wuji and the others ponder for a moment. It had to be said that Flender's example was very apt. They had all seen the state of those young men on the heavenly curtain. If it really could strengthen the body, would they still look like that? What a pity, I thought we could make a fortune. Everyone shook their heads with regret. Looking at the disappointed crowd, Flender felt a sudden pang of heartache, as if something valuable had slipped away from him. Must be an illusion. The video continues. Once the young men left, Yi Hengchuan returned to Yu Xiaogang's side with his ledger. Seeing Yu Xiaogang staring at the departing youths, his face immediately darkened. Xiaogang, you must never learn from them. They have no talent, and their lives are already set in stone. But you are different, your fate is not yet sealed, and now is the time to work hard. If you stray onto the wrong path, there will be no turning back. Yi Hengchuan's serious words brought Yu Xiaogang's gaze back. He grinned, realizing that Yi Hengchuan had misunderstood him. Uncle Yi, don't worry, I know what I'm doing. I was just thinking, their bodies are so weak, yet they become so strong after taking the medicine. Could these types of medicinal materials also be used to strengthen the body? Hearing Yu Xiaogang's words, Yi Hengchuan frowned and fell into thought. I'm afraid not. Although these medicinal materials can make the body stronger, it's only temporary. You saw their condition. They use these drugs constantly, yet their bodies remain weak. It's clear your idea is incorrect. Ultimately, Yi Hengchuan shook his head. However, Yi Hengchuan's answer did not dampen Yu Xiaogang's curiosity. But they didn't absorb the medicinal effects, they used them all up right then and there. If they could restrain their impulses and absorb the effects instead, would it be able to strengthen their bodies? Yu Xiaogang put forward his viewpoint. Now it was Yi Hengchuan's turn to ponder, as he truly didn't know how to answer that question. How about this, Uncle Yi? We won't get anywhere just by thinking about it here. Rather than daydreaming, why don't we conduct an experiment? Let's take some of the livestock raised by the family, tie them up, and have them consume these to see what the final result is. Yu Xiaogang spoke his mind. Practice is always the only standard for testing the truth. Before practicing, no matter how much is said or thought, it is useless. All right, then I'll try it with you. After a moment of silence, Yi Hengchuan finally nodded. It was just an experiment anyway. Even if it failed, it would only waste some ordinary medicinal materials, which Yi Hengchuan didn't care about. But if it succeeded, the harvest would be enormous. Thus, a large pile of drugs with enchantment effects was soon brought before them under Yi Hengchuan's orders. Deer antler powder, tiger bone wine, wolfberries, whale glue, dried seahorses. Kid, to help you with this experiment, your Uncle Yi was looked at strangely by quite a few people. Looking at the many medicinal materials before him, Yi Hengchuan said with a smile. Once our experiment succeeds, they'll be looking at you with admiration instead. Yu Xiaogang also said with a smile. Then came the tense and exciting experimental phase. Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengchuan went to the place where the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect raised livestock for meat and requested several hundred pigs. They selected several dozen pigs, had them tied up securely and kept in isolation, and then poured the medicinal materials into their mouths. After finishing this, Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengchuan exchanged a look. The smile on Yu Xiaogang's face hadn't faded. After all, just thinking about what was to happen next made it hard for him not to laugh. You really are something. Tapping Yu Xiaogang's head with a finger, Yi Hengchuan had a somewhat helpless expression. He felt he was getting a bit muddled himself, as the manager of the Thunder Dragon Hall, accompanying Yu Xiaogang in these unspeakable matters, was truly. The two didn't stay long and soon departed. Not long after they left, the effects of the medicine kicked in within the pigs. But unfortunately, because their limbs were tied up securely, they couldn't move at all. Thus, they could only lie on the ground, roaring incessantly. The combined roaring of dozens of pigs was earth-shattering. Everyone who heard these roars couldn't help but wear expressions of disbelief. Why do the pigs scream in the middle of the night? This question became a mystery that troubled the nearby residents for many years to come. Chapter 20: The Discovered Whale Jelly. Watching the experiment of Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengquan on the heavenly curtain, especially when it played the footage of the pigs screaming in the middle of the night at the end. That commotion could be described as earth-shattering. Those two shameless fellows. Some female spirit masters scolded with blushing faces after seeing the scenes on the heavenly curtain. As for the male spirit masters, they were much more open, watching the heavenly curtain and laughing heartily one after another. Of course, after the laughter, everyone watched the heavenly curtain with expectant gazes, waiting for the results of Yu Xiaogang's experiment. The video continues. A night passed quickly, but to ensure the pigs fully absorbed the medicinal effects, Yu Xiaogang specifically waited an extra day. It wasn't until the morning of the third day that Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengquan arrived at the place where the pigs were kept together. Opening the pigsty, a pungent, fishy stench wafted out, mixed with some strange odors. Anyway, the people who came with them basically vomited upon smelling it. Fortunately, Yu Xiaogang had anticipated all this and hired some people to come and clean up. Once the cleaning was finished, Yu Xiaogang had people check the pigs that had taken the medicine one by one for any changes. The spirit masters called by Yi Hengquan to help were momentarily stunned when they heard Yu Xiaogang's instructions. Check the changes in these pigs one by one. Forgive them, as spirit masters, they had never done such a thing before. Especially since the one telling them to do these things was Yu Xiaogang, currently a celebrity of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. Although he was the sect master's son, his own talent was incredibly poor, even worse than this group of people. How was a fellow destined for no achievements in the future qualified to command a group of spirit masters like them? As spirit masters, they also had their own pride. Consequently, for a moment, not a single person moved. Seeing the reaction of these spirit masters, Yu Xiaogang sighed. How could he not know what they were thinking? Indeed, anyone receiving an order from a trash would develop a sense of resistance. It was like his previous life. As a wealthy man, if he suddenly heard some punk ordering him to do something one day. Even if it was something he could complete with a snap of his fingers, why should he listen to a punk's orders? Thus, Yu Xiaogang could only turn his gaze toward Yi Hengquan. Fortunately, although he was a punk with a background. All right, all of you shut up, just do as Xiaogang says. Xiaogang's words are my words. Or rather, are you planning not to do as I say? Yi Hengquan nodded upon seeing Yu Xiaogang's gaze, and then stepped forward to speak. As he spoke, an aura of majesty, without anger, emanated from his body. To have been a friend of the Thunder Douluo Yu Yuanzhen back then, and later a follower, Yi Hengquan's strength was naturally extraordinary. Although he hadn't stepped into the realm of a spirit Douluo due to his talent, he had reached the peak of a rank 79 spirit saint. Uncle Yi's, you must be joking, we'll go right now. Shaken by Yi Hengquan's aura, the group of spirit masters immediately bowed and scraped, hurrying into the pigsty to inspect the pig's condition. Xiaogang, don't take them to heart, they're just like that, short-sighted and careless. Yi Hengquan was afraid the attitude of those people would discourage Yu Xiaogang, so he spoke words of comfort. Don't worry, Uncle Yi, I wouldn't be sad or upset over such a small matter. Yu Xiaogang responded with a smile after hearing Yi Hengquan's words. If an attitude that didn't even count as mockery could make him sad, then Yu Xiaogang would have long since crumbled into dust when hearing the ridicule from the sect members. The spirit master's inspection of the pigs didn't last long, because very soon they found unusual individuals among the pigs. Uncle Yi, come quickly and look at these pigs, they actually broke free from their ropes. Fortunately, they were kept in individual stalls, otherwise heaven knows what kind of mess they would have made. A spirit master rushed in front of the two of them and said with a face full of wonder, You said several pigs broke free from their ropes. Hearing this, Yi Hengquan's eyes lit up. He stepped forward quickly and grabbed the spirit master's shoulder. That's right, the other pigs are all tied up properly, but these few are different. There are broken ropes in their stalls, they must have broken free themselves. The spirit master whose shoulder was grabbed didn't understand why Yi Hengchuan was so excited, but he still relayed the information he had seen. Xiaogang. Yi Hengchuan looked at Yu Xiaogang with a face full of joy. Yu Xiaogang's face was also filled with joy. The ropes used to tie the pigs were all very sturdy. Ordinary domestic pigs couldn't possibly break free from them. If only 1 or 2 pigs had broken free, perhaps they weren't tied properly, but several meant something entirely different. So with excited hearts, Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengchuan walked into the pigsty and came before the pigs that had broken free. Sure enough, inside the stalls, a pig was slumped on the ground sleeping. Beside it was a rope that had snapped in 2. And from the break, one could tell that it was definitely snapped by brute force. They checked the condition of the other pigs, and it was the same, the ropes were snapped. What medicine were these few fed? Yi Hengchuan looked at the assistant nearby with a face full of joy. Let me see, number 7 about 20-year whale jelly, number 9 about 30-year whale jelly, number 17 about 50-year whale jelly, number 28 about 40-year whale jelly. After a series of information reports, without needing further detailed analysis, Yi Hengchuan already understood which medicinal ingredient possessed the effect of strengthening the body. Whale jelly, I remember this thing is a special substance produced in the brains of whale-type spirit beasts. It's considered a relatively hard-to-obtain rare item. Among aphrodisiac medicines, this thing is also considered an extremely rare treasure. Besides that, like spirit beasts, it's categorized into 10-year, 100-year, 1,000-year, and 10,000-year. Most people only see 10-year or 100-year whale jelly. 1,000-year whale gel is the most popular among the nobility. On the contrary, the even rarer 10,000-year whale glue is not popular with the nobility because of its high age, scarcity, and excessive price, and because it has no use other than as an aphrodisiac. Yi Hengchuan was indeed worthy of being the one in charge of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon Sex Apothecary. Almost instantly, he recalled a wealth of information regarding whale jelly. Hearing this information, Yu Xiaogang looked back at those pigs that had gained an enhanced physique just by eating several-decade-old whale jelly. If several decades could do this, then what kind of boost could 100-year, 1,000-year, or even 10,000-year whale glue bring to his body? Chapter 21 Dai Mu Bai, what's the point of fighting this? In the heavenly curtain, the effects of several decades' worth of whale glue were clearly presented before everyone. At this moment, everyone watching the heavenly curtain was on the same wavelength as Yu Xiaogang's brain. Indeed, if a few decades of whale glue was already like this, how powerful would century-level, 1,000-year, or even 10,000-year whale glue be? Black World 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. Listen up, everyone. From now on, all the pharmacies under our 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School are forbidden from putting whale glue on their shelves. Not even 10-year glue is allowed. In addition, everyone go out and search everywhere. Find anyone willing to sell whale glue and buy every bit they have. Especially 1,000-year and 10,000-year whale glue. No matter the cost, our 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School lacks many things, but we do not lack money. Also, immediately gather personnel to form a whaling team for our 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. They must be elites. The ocean is vast, and I don't want our whaling team to run into any problems when they head out to sea. Later. Order after order was issued from sect master Ning Fengzhai's mouth, which were then taken by the sect members to be quickly arranged. After everything had been arranged, Ning Fengzhai finally let out a long breath and took a sip of tea from his teacup. Hugh, I really didn't expect that whale glue, which was originally used to spice things up, could actually enhance a spirit master's physique. I used that stuff once before, but I never noticed this at all. Ning Fengzhai shook his head and spoke with a face full of regret. If only he had discovered it sooner, all the whale glue on the entire Douluo continent would belong to their 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School. You used whale glue to spice things up. It would be a miracle if you discovered its hidden effects. Bone Douluo looked at Ning Fengzhai disdainfully, causing the latter to cough twice in embarrassment under his gaze. With this discovery, the physiques of spirit masters will be enhanced in the future, and the years of the spirit rings they can obtain will increase. Perhaps this can help my 7 Treasure Glazed Tile School evolve the 7 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda into the 9 Treasure Glazed Tile Pagoda. Looking at it this way, we should call Rongrong back. She has only just started recently and has great talent. She can grow alongside the Dragon God Douluo in the heavenly curtain. After coughing twice, Ning Fengzhai's expression became much more serious. Hearing Ning Fengzhai's words, the expressions of Bone Douluo and Sword Douluo also became serious. When it came to the sect, they had to maintain a serious attitude. However, as for Rongrong, can she endure it? You must know, Whale Glue is. Sword Douluo didn't finish his sentence, but his meaning was clear. He was somewhat reluctant to let Ning Rongrong do such things. Yes, Fengzhai, you also saw the state of those test pigs. Although their physiques were enhanced, they had to endure the fire of desire during the process. As a father, are you really willing to let your daughter do this? Hearing Sword Douluo's words, Bone Douluo also showed a resistant expression. Forget it, I didn't consider it thoroughly. However, we should still call Rongrong back first. With the descent of the heavenly curtain, the winds and clouds of the continent are changing. I'm not at ease with her staying outside. Ning Fengzhai fell silent for a moment before finally sighing. If it were just Ning Fengzhai himself, he would certainly have Ning Rongrong try it. After all, before being a father, he was first the sect master of the 7 treasure glazed tile school. For the sake of the sect, having his daughter suffer a bit was a very cost-effective deal. But precisely because he was the sect master, he also had to consider the feelings of Sword Douluo and Bone Douluo. If they were unwilling, even if Ning Fengzhai himself was willing, he could not force it. Aside from the 7 treasure glazed tile school, the higher-ups of all the powers in both the black and white worlds simultaneously issued tasks to their sects to collect whale glue after seeing the test results. There were virtually no medicines on the Douluo continent clearly capable of enhancing one's physique. Whale glue was the first, and the strength of one's physique was directly related to the spirit ring years one could obtain. The years of a spirit ring determined a spirit master's future. It could be said that at this moment, in the hearts of everyone on the Douluo continent, whale glue represented the future of spirit masters. If they didn't take action now, it would mean they had no future. Black World Shrek Academy. Whoosh! With a whistle, a grim-faced Flender descended from the sky and deactivated his martial soul possession. How was it, Dean? Did you buy any whale glue? As his disciple, Ma Hongjun immediately approached and asked as soon as he saw his teacher return. No, all the pharmacies in Suchu City said they don't have any whale glue in their shops anymore. That's bullshit. I just saw those pharmacies in the city selling it 2 days ago, and it was even 1000-year whale glue. Dai Mubai said angrily from the side. His words prompted Ma Hongjun and Oscar to give him a strange look, but it was only for a moment. Right now, they were more concerned about the matter of the whale glue. After all, with whale glue, they could obtain spirit rings with higher years. This was a matter concerning their own futures. I know they were selling it before, but they're not selling it now. What can we do? We can't just go and rob them, can we? Flender's face was as grim as water. He recalled the idea Zhao Wuji and the others had discussed with him earlier about hoarding a batch of medicinal materials to make a huge profit. Thinking back to his answer at the time, the current Flender wanted to transmigrate to the past and strangle his past self. Why did you have to think so much? Why couldn't you just follow whatever Xiaogang did in the heavenly curtain? You just had to think for yourself. Now look at this, piles and piles of money that could have been earned have all flown away. Then what should we do? Given our situation, the only way to get whale glue is to buy it. But now no one is willing to sell. Doesn't that mean knowing the secret of whale glue is no different from not knowing it at all for us? Ma Hongjun looked completely dejected. The expressions on the faces of Oscar, Tang San, and the others were equally unpleasant. Like Ma Hongjun, the only way they could get whale glue was to buy it, but now it was unavailable. Doesn't that mean they would fall far behind spirit masters of the same age in the future? If one were to say whose mood was the most miserable at this moment, it was undoubtedly Dai Mubai. Right now, his primary feeling was despair. As a prince of the Star Luo Empire, if he wanted to survive in the future, Dai Mubai had to defeat his older brother, Dai Weisi. Dai Weisi already held the advantage in this struggle between brothers. Dai Mubai had fled in the first place, because he felt he couldn't compete with him. Now, the heavenly curtain had provided information that whale glue could enhance a spirit master's physique, allowing them to obtain higher-year spirit rings. This was just great, because of various reasons, his side couldn't get their hands on any whale glue. On the other hand, Dai Weisi was in the Empire. How could he possibly be without something like whale glue? With whale glue, the already massive gap between them would become even wider. What's the point of him even fighting anymore? He might as well just lie flat and wait for death. Watching Dai Mubai's crumbling expression, despair also rose in Zhu Zhuking's heart. However, she, unlike Dai Mubai, did not have the thought of lying flat and waiting for death. No matter what the final result was, Zhu Zhuking would give it her all and put in every ounce of effort before that day arrived. Whether she lived or died, she would deal with it when the time came. Chapter 22, Flender, thanks to Brother Xiaogang for the information. Whale gel caused an unprecedented storm in the two parallel Douluo continents. However, at the moment, this storm is still in its beginning stages. Everyone is waiting for the day when Yu Xiaogang in the heavenly curtain truly relies on whale gel to improve his physical fitness and obtain a spirit ring. They want to know exactly how many years the whale gel can increase the age of the spirit rings they obtain. The video continues. After confirming that whale gel could improve physical fitness, Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengquan turned their attention to the 1,000-year whale gel. Xiaogang, do you want to consume the whale gel now? If you want to consume it now, Uncle Yi will directly get you a 10,000-year whale glue to take. Yi Hengquan patted his chest and said with a confident look. However, what greeted him was Yu Xiaogang's somewhat indescribable look. What's wrong? Why are you looking at me like that? Yi Hengquan scratched the back of his head, looking completely bewildered. Uncle Yi, we've only discovered that whale gel can be used to strengthen the physique, but what about the side effects? The method of use? Is there any danger? To what extent is the limit of strengthening? We don't know any of these things. In this situation, taking it directly, aren't you afraid that if I eat the 10,000-year whale glue and can't digest it, I'll be burst to death by the medicinal effects? Yu Xiaogang said with a somewhat helpless expression. He discovered that although the Douluo continent is a Xuanhuan world, and there are cases of using drugs to assist in cultivation, Spirit Master's knowledge of those heaven and earth treasures is extremely limited. His asterisk, Uncle Yi was indeed a bit negligent. Fortunately, you're smart, Xiaogang. Yi Hengquan imagined the scene Yu Xiaogang described, and cold sweat immediately broke out on his back. If Yu Xiaogang really took it directly, and something went wrong later, he wouldn't be able to explain it to Big Brother Yu. All right, since it's confirmed that whale gel can strengthen the body, the next step is to continue the experiments. This time, let's use 100-year whale gel. By the way, Uncle Yi, is the family's stock of whale gel sufficient? Hearing Yu Xiaogang's question, Yi Hengquan gave him a reassuring look. Whale gel is a relatively popular commodity that the nobles like very much, so the family stocks a lot of it. It's definitely enough. That's good. Hearing Yi Hengquan's words, Yu Xiaogang nodded. At the same time, he felt grateful that his father was a titled Douluo and the sect master of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. For someone from a commoner background, wanting to mobilize resources like this, conduct experiments, and find a way to change their fate against heaven would be simply impossible. Thus, the second wave of experiments began. This time, Yu Xiaogang fed 100-year whale gel to 10 pigs. And he also had people use stronger ropes to tie up these pigs. Thus, it was another night of pigs howling. When the third day arrived, and Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengquan returned to the pigsty, what had happened there made them both frown. You mean 9 out of the 10 pigs died? Yi Hengquan asked in disbelief. Yes, bleeding from all 7 orifices. We checked, and their insides were a mess. They died a miserable death. A spirit master said with a sigh of emotion. This was the first time he had seen such a way of dying. Take us in to have a look. Yi Hengquan and Yu Xiaogang glanced at each other and then spoke. Under the guidance of that spirit master, the two of them saw the miserably dead domestic pigs with their own eyes. It was indeed tragic. The only pig that survived was because the whale gel it consumed was barely 100 years old, so it managed to pull through by luck. Even so, that pig lay paralyzed on the ground, looking half dead. Seeing the miserable state of these pigs, Yi Hengchuan felt lucky once again that Yu Xiaogang hadn't agreed to his idea of taking the whale gel directly. Xiaogang, this whale gel over 100 years old is too dangerous. One slight mistake and it'll cost you your life. I think it'll be enough for you to just take some that are a few decades old to improve a bit later. Yi Hengchuan said. Originally, Yi Hengchuan thought that by enduring and not letting the medicinal effect dissipate, it would at most be uncomfortable, but now it seemed that it was lethal. In the black and white worlds, everyone who had been buying up whale gel on a large scale was instantly stunned upon seeing this. Looking at the 100-year and 1,000-year whale gel in their hands, they didn't know for a moment whether they should continue collecting them. After all, if this thing isn't used correctly, it can directly lead to death. In the Black World, the largest pharmacy in Suzhou City. Not long ago, the unwilling Tang San, Dai Mubai, and others followed Flender, Zhao Wuji and the rest to the pharmacy, prepared to buy whale gel no matter what. After various fancy rhetoric from Flender, and even using his strength as a spirit saint to threaten him, he finally persuaded the shopkeeper to sell them a few pieces of 1,000-year whale gel. Just as the two sides were preparing to trade, the results of the second wave of experiments appeared. Gulp! Looking at the miserably dead pigs in the heavenly curtain, Ma Hongjun swallowed hard. Teacher, I suddenly feel that we should just absorb spirit rings as we used to. Whale gel and such aren't really necessary. Scared he was scared, Ma Hongjun didn't want to die like those pigs, bleeding from all 7 orifices. Yeah, Dean, there's no need, we can just follow the normal way. Beside them, Dai Mubai, whose face had been long ever since the whale gel information came out, finally showed a smile. The apothecary shop owner, who was trading with Flender, saw that things were going south and immediately tried to snatch the money from Flender's hand. But unfortunately, how could he be a match for a spirit saint? Flender retracted the money bag, as if he had received an electric shock, while simultaneously throwing the pieces of 1,000-year whale gel back onto the counter. Customer, you already confirmed you wanted to buy it. This isn't very good. The apothecary shop owner still wanted to struggle a bit. But unfortunately, he was facing Flender. What do you mean defaulting? I haven't received the goods yet. Since the goods aren't in hand, it doesn't count. Hongjun Mubai, let's go. Fortunately, the trade didn't go through. If this scene had appeared after the trade was successful, I would have lost big time. Ha ha ha, Xiaogang is indeed my good brother. Even the Xiaogang from the parallel world wouldn't screw me over. Flender left the pharmacy with Ma Hongjun and Dai Mubai, looking relieved. As he left, he kept giving a thumbs up toward the heavenly curtain. Looking at Flender's departing back, the apothecary shop owner's face turned ashen. He had threatened me for so long, and we were about to trade, but then it just fell through like this. It was only because Flender was a spirit saint, otherwise I would have cursed him up and down. Humph Shrek Academy, right, don't let me catch an opportunity. If I get the chance and don't screw you over, I'll take your surname. The apothecary shop owner grumbled as he continued to watch the heavenly curtain. He couldn't believe it. Since the heavenly curtain chose to broadcast this, it proves that these events had an impact on the future of that Dragon God Douluo. He was betting that whale gel was useful, and it was just that the method of use in the heavenly curtain was wrong currently. Chapter 23, Finding the Method and Testing on a Real Person. There were many people who shared the same thoughts as the Suzhou City apothecary shop owner. Of course, many others broke down immediately upon seeing this scene, and in a fit of venting, they sold off all the whale glue in their hands at rock-bottom prices. The video continues. Yi Hengchuan's words did not make Yu Xiaogang give up his exploration of whale glue. The reason Yu Xiaogang wanted to conduct several more rounds of testing was precisely to prevent this kind of situation from happening. Uncle Yi, don't be in such a hurry. Think about it. Those nobles who frequently use whale glue are using pieces that are centuries or even millennia old. And the result, nothing happened to them. In other words, whale glue isn't actually as dangerous as you think. Yu Xiaogang spoke to soothe him. Yi Hengchuan was stunned upon hearing this, but following Yu Xiaogang's logic, it was indeed true. This whale glue is truly strange. It can strengthen the body, but when the age increases, it threatens the life of the consumer. Yet the solution is simple: just consume the medicinal effects. I've been in Thunder Dragon Hall for so many years, and traveled the continent with your father back then, but this is the first time I've seen such a bizarre thing. Yi Hengchuan clicked his tongue in wonder. Beside him, Yu Xiaogang remained silent, lost in thought. Since whale glue that is decades old can be used to strengthen the body, there is no reason why century-old or millennium-old glue cannot be used. Combining this with the way those pigs died, Yu Xiaogang could basically conclude that their bodies were overwhelmed by the medicinal effects of the whale glue, leading to their deaths. Therefore, the path of using whale glue to strengthen the body is actually still feasible, but he has to find the correct way to use it. Having clarified this point, Yu Xiaogang looked at Yi Hengchuan. Uncle Yi, next let's try processing the whale glue first. We'll feed the processed whale glue to the pigs and see if there are any changes. Process it first? You mean we haven't found the right way to use whale glue? Yi Hengchuan's eyes lit up at these words. As soon as Yu Xiaogang spoke, he thought of many medicinal ingredients that require special processing before use. Could it be that whale glue is also one of those things that requires special processing? Exactly. If decades-old whale glue can strengthen the body, there's no reason century-old or millennium-old glue wouldn't. So next, we can try different methods, such as reducing the dosage, taking it in batches, or pairing it with other medicinal herbs. Even putting the whale glue directly into boiling water to cook it, diluting it with water before consumption. We have enough time, we will eventually find a suitable method. Yu Xiaogang said. Thus, the pigsty area began using various methods to process the whale glue before feeding it to the pigs. During this process, Yu Xiaogang constantly recorded every processing method. He recorded all the data in a ledger, organized it, and then conducted research. Before long, a piece of information was extracted by Yu Xiaogang. Boiling, frying, roasting. After being fed whale glue obtained through these processing methods, the age limit the pigs can withstand is constantly increasing. In other words, the correct way to use whale glue is to heat it. Looking at the information he had organized, a smile appeared at the corner of Yu Xiaogang's mouth. Who would have thought that the correct way to use whale glue would be so simple? Holding the final organized results, Yu Xiaogang went to Yi Hengchuan and informed him of everything. Looking at the experimental data Yu Xiaogang handed him, and the results analyzed through this data, Yi Hengchuan was speechless. The data had already explained everything clearly. What else could he say? He could only sigh in his heart that Xiaogang was indeed Brother Yu's son. Even if the heavens were unwilling to give him talent, he could still rise. Having confirmed the true usage of whale glue, Yi Hengchuan called over a fire attribute spirit emperor to assist Yu Xiaogang in completing the final test. This time there were no accidents. Watching that fire attribute spirit emperor continuously heat a piece of millennium whale glue until it softened and was fed into the pig's mouth. On the third day, that pig was perfectly fine, and its body had become unprecedentedly strong, its strength no longer inferior to a 100-year spirit beast. Upon obtaining this result, a heavy stone finally fell from the hearts of Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengchuan, especially Yu Xiaogang. With whale glue helping him improve his physical fitness, he could finally go and obtain a spirit ring of a higher age, thereby embarking on a heaven-defying path to change his fate. However, despite this, Yi Hengchuan was still somewhat uneasy. The current tests have all been on pigs. It hasn't been tried on a human yet. We need some examples of real people so I can feel at ease letting you use the whale glue. I believe if it were your father, he would have the same thought. Hearing this, Yu Xiaogang did not object. So the next day, a spirit master whose spirit power had already reached level 10 and was preparing to obtain his first soul ring was brought before Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengchuan. Young man, listen well, we want you to help us complete a test. If the experiment fails, you likely won't lose much. At worst, I swear by my name Yi Hengchuan that if an accident occurs, I will ensure you live the rest of your life comfortably. But once the test succeeds, kid, the benefits you'll gain are beyond your imagination. At that time, I can even personally step in to help you obtain your first soul ring. How about it, will you agree to our request? Yi Hengchuan asked, looking at the spirit master in front of him. Yu Xiaogang was also observing this spirit master from the side. Aged 16 or 17, only obtaining his first soul ring at this age meant his talent wasn't very good. Wearing a set of washed-out clothes with some patches, he clearly came from a poor background. For this spirit master, if their test succeeded, the benefits he could obtain were indeed unimaginable. Even if the experiment failed, his future was secured. I'd agree. After hearing Yi Hengchuan's words, that spirit master agreed almost without hesitation. Very well, by the way, what is your name? Wang Dachui. Nodding with satisfaction, Yi Hengchuan looked at Yu Xiaogang. The two exchanged a glance, both with smiles on their faces. Leading Wang Dachui to the back hall, the fire attribute spirit emperor processed a piece of whale glue about 3,000 years old, and then handed it to Wang Dachui. Wang Dachui did not hesitate, ignoring the heat of the whale glue, and swallowed it in one gulp before looking at Yi Hengchuan. What are you waiting for? Cultivate. Just do it as you normally would, and remember to suppress the restlessness in your heart. With Yi Hengchuan's words, Wang Dachui closed his eyes and sat cross-legged, cultivating according to his usual method. Before long, Wang Dachui felt a burning heat all over his body, but he kept Yi Hengchuan's words in mind and forcibly suppressed the impulse in his heart. After an unknown amount of time, the burning sensation vanished, and only then did Wang Dachui open his eyes. Feel how your body is now. Hearing this, Wang Dachui subconsciously moved his body and then showed an expression of disbelief. My body is so strong. It's good that it's strong, I was afraid you wouldn't be. Yi Hengchuan laughed heartily, walked to Wang Dachui's side, and personally felt his physical strength. He was like a completely different person compared to before. Having reached this conclusion, Yi Hengchuan looked at Yu Xiaogang with a face full of joy. Although Yu Xiaogang's expression was much calmer, it wasn't hard to see from his tightly clenched fists that his excitement was not a bit less than Yi Hengchuan's. Chapter 24, The Results Confirmed, Family Quarrel. Under the strengthening of the whale glue, Yi Hengchuan judged that Wang Dachui's physical strength was already no less than that of some spirit masters, around rank 20. With this strength, it was enough to obtain a spirit ring of around 500 to 700 years. But Yi Hengchuan was still a bit uncertain. After all, the current record for the age of a first soul ring on the Douluo continent definitely did not exceed 400 years. At this moment, feeling his body grow stronger, Wang Dachui looked at Yi Hengchuan, his eyes full of longing. My lord, you said before that once the experiment succeeded, you could help me obtain my first soul ring. I wonder if that's still possible. Wang Dachui watched Yi Hengchuan with an expectant face. A spirit saint helping him obtain a spirit ring, such an opportunity was rare. Of course I, Yi Hengchuan, keep my word. Yi Hengchuan answered subconsciously. After finishing, he glanced at Wang Dachui, and his eyes suddenly lit up. Kid, since you've already gambled with me this first time, how about accompanying me once more? Okay. Wang Dachui agreed even faster this time, almost the instant Yi Hengchuan finished speaking. Ha ha ha, good lad, I like your personality. When there's an opportunity, you seize it immediately. Yi Hengchuan patted Wang Dachui's shoulder with an appreciative expression. He had already decided that he must take Wang Dachui under his wing later, even if only to arrange some small tasks for him. After settling things with Wang Dachui, Yi Hengchuan looked at Yu Xiaogang. Xiaogang, next I'm going to take him to get a spirit ring. Do you want to come and see? Hearing Yi Hengchuan's words, Yu Xiaogang nodded. He had followed the whale glue experiment this far. Obtaining the spirit ring was the final step. There was no reason for him not to follow. So the next day, the three of them set out on the road to obtain the first soul ring for Wang Dachui. The location they were heading to was the Thunder Forest, a place near Blue Lightning City for obtaining spirit rings, and a soul beast forest kept by the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. There were basically no high-level spirit beasts, which was why Yi Hengchuan dared to bring Yu Xiaogang along. Arriving at the Thunder Forest, the next step was to find a suitable spirit beast. During this period, Yi Hengchuan explained much knowledge about soul hunting to Yu Xiaogang. Having his first experience with soul hunting, Yu Xiaogang naturally listened with great interest. Wang Dachui, standing to the side, also listened carefully, memorizing everything Yi Hengchuan said. This was knowledge passed down by a spirit saint. Normally, where would he get the chance to hear guidance from a spirit saint? Under Yi Hengchuan's lead, the three of them quickly found a spirit beast suitable for Wang Dachui. Your spirit is an iron staff, so this iron scale beast is a very suitable spirit beast for you. The iron scale beast is covered in iron armor of the metal attribute which fits your spirit. At the same time, the iron scale beast is considered a power-type spirit beast, which can boost your strength. Overall, choosing it definitely won't be a mistake. However, the age of this iron scale beast is about 550 years. Your body has been strengthened, and according to my judgment, it can be absorbed. But attaching a spirit ring of this age as a first soul ring is something we've never seen before. Whether it will succeed, I don't know yet, so it's all up to you. If you are unwilling, I will find you another suitable spirit beast later. Yi Hengchuan made things very clear, leaving the choice in Wang Dachui's hands. This time, Wang Dachui hesitated for a moment, but still gritted his teeth and agreed. It's very good. Yi Hengchuan nodded with satisfaction, then crippled the iron scale beast and placed it before Wang Dachui, who delivered the final blow. A yellow spirit ring drifted over the iron scale beast's corpse. Wang Dachui swallowed hard and began to absorb the spirit ring. Beside him, Yu Xiaogang and Yi Hengchuan both prayed in their hearts, hoping that Wang Dachui would succeed. To the surprise of Yu Xiaogang and the other, the process of Wang Dachui absorbing the spirit ring was exceptionally smooth, so smooth they could hardly believe it. In just a few minutes, Wang Dachui had completed the absorption of the spirit ring, opening his eyes with a silly grin. Hiss! Seeing this scene, Yi Hengchuan sucked in a breath of cold air. This was a spirit ring of about 550 years, and he absorbed it in just a few minutes. This speed meant that the age of this spirit ring was still far from Wang Dachui's limit. The efficacy of the whale glue was actually this terrifying. Hiss! At this moment, it wasn't just Yi Hengchuan sucking in cold air, but everyone in both the black and white worlds who knew nothing about whale glue. The previous physical strengthening was just a judgment, something intangible, but the current acquisition of the spirit ring was the formal seal of the result. If the experimental results broadcast by the heavenly curtain before had only caused a storm, then now, the storm had reached its most intense stage. Black World, Suituo City. Still the same apothecary shop as before. Flender and the others from Shrek Academy gathered here, once again proposing to buy whale glue. But this time, the apothecary shop owner refused to cooperate. I'm so sorry, guests, we have already processed all the whale glue. We are truly out of stock now. Speaking of which, why didn't you buy it back then? At that time, we had negotiated everything, and it was just one step away from the transaction. The owner held his head high, looking at Flender and the others with a sarcastic tone. Later, mocked by the apothecary shop owner, Flender was speechless. Yes, why hadn't he bought it back then? Owner, you'd better think carefully about whether or not you want to sell to us. After a moment of silence, Flender finally decided to use his strength to pressure him. But unfortunately, this time, the owner was not afraid. Oh my guest, you really only have this one trick. Unfortunately, all the apothecary shops in Suituo City have received notice from the Spirit Hall branch and are no longer allowed to sell whale glue. If you want it, you'll have to go find the hall master of the Spirit Hall branch. The apothecary shop owner said with an exaggerated expression. What Spirit Hall? How can they do this? Dai Mubai and the others nearby grew anxious, but they could only worry in vain. After all, the current Shrek Academy did not have the ability to contend with the Spirit Hall. Thus, in the end, the group could only leave the apothecary shop dejectedly. On the way back to Shrek Academy, Flender looked up at the heavenly curtain, wanting to cry but having no tears. He felt as if he were being toyed with in the palm of the heavenly curtain's hand. The film continues. Back in Blue Lightning City, after bidding farewell to Yi Hengchuan, Yu Xiaogang returned to the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect with the experimental results, looking excited. He wanted to quickly tell his father, Yu Yuanzhen, the good news. With whale glue, he could obtain higher-aged spirit rings in the future, and his chance to defy heaven and change his fate was even greater. At the very least, with the whale glue he discovered, his father would no longer have to suffer the gossip of the clansmen because of him. Just as Yu Xiaogang excitedly returned home with the experimental results, he found a middle-aged man blocking the front of his house, as if standing guard. Yu Kengya, what is he doing here? Yu Kengya, the son of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect's third elder and a rank 66 spirit emperor, was a relatively well-known figure in the family. He's probably here with the third elder to see my father. Thinking this, Yu Xiaogang prepared to go around him. However, at that moment, Yu Kengya blocked Yu Xiaogang's path. Stop, you are not allowed in right now. With a stiff and cold tone, mixed with disgust and superiority, Yu Xiaogang raised his head and saw the disdainful look in Yu Kengya's eyes. Frowning, Yu Xiaogang did not stop and tried to go around him. Did you not hear my words? Yu Kengya's voice rang out again, and immediately after, Yu Xiaogang could feel something coming toward him. Turning his body to dodge, Yu Xiaogang looked at Yu Kengya, who was trying to grab his collar, and a fire rose in his heart. This is my home, why should I listen to you? Yu Xiaogang's questioning made Yu Kengya's gaze toward him even colder. A waste who brings shame to the family, yet you have the nerve to run around everywhere. If I were you, I would have stayed at home and never come out. Yu Kengya sneered. As you said, that's you. Don't think everyone is like you, someone who doesn't even think of solutions just because their talent is poor, becoming a person who just idles around in the family. Leaving these words behind, Yu Xiaogang walked into his home. Looking at Yu Xiaogang's departing back, Yu Kengya clenched his fists. HMPH, if you weren't the sect master's son, I would definitely teach you a lesson. With a cold snort, Yu Kengya turned back to continue standing guard as he had been. Passing Yu Kengya and returning home, Yu Xiaogang immediately overheard a conversation. No matter what, it's impossible for the clan to supply Yu Xiaogang according to the resources of a genius. Although you are the sect master, this sect does not belong to you alone. With Yu Xiaogang's talent, what right does he have to enjoy the treatment of a genius? The fact that we haven't kicked him out of the family is already giving you face, sect master, yet you actually want to apply for genius treatment for him. He's made the sect a laughingstock of the Douluo continent, and we haven't even held him accountable yet. You want resources? Impossible. Inside the room, Yu Yuanzhen watched the elders with a grim expression. Although his son Yu Xiaogang had poor talent, from their interactions, Yu Yuanzhen could tell that his son was very smart. More importantly, he had the determination to grow stronger and wash away the shame for himself and his father. For such a son, Yu Yuanzhen would support him no matter what. But the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect was not his alone to command. They were a family, and resource allocation naturally had to be concentrated on geniuses. Taking a deep breath, Yu Yuanzhen suppressed the dissatisfaction in his heart and forced a smile onto his face. Elders, Xiaogang's talent is just a bit poor, but he is still very smart. I believe he will definitely be able to grow. Before Yu Yuanzhen could finish, an elder raised a hand and interrupted him. That's just your imagination. Innate soul power rank 1. In all these years on the Douluo continent, how many people with innate soul power rank 1 have defied heaven and changed their fates? We cannot waste a large amount of resources on a piece of trash. Wouldn't it be better to use these resources to cultivate others? The elder's words made Yu Yuanzhen clench his fists, but he still wanted to try and fight for it. At that moment, suddenly, bang! The door burst open, and everyone looked over to see Yu Xiaogang standing at the door with a cold expression. Father, you don't need to do this. I can earn the resources needed for cultivate myself. Chapter 25 Yu Xiaogang, Face, Treatment, I want it all. Father, you don't need to do this. I can fight for the resources needed for cultivation myself. The sudden voice caused the room to fall silent. Everyone looked at Yu Xiaogang, who had suddenly pushed open the door and entered. Xiaogang, you're back. how was your stay at your Uncle Yi's place these past 2 days? Back then, he and I were the closest. If it weren't for your Uncle Yi's poor talent, he would have become a spirit Douluo no matter what. Seeing Yu Xiaogang return home, Yu Yuanzhen wanted to forcibly change the subject. After all, he knew how much his son wanted to become stronger, to wash away the humiliation of these years for both his father and himself. I was doing quite well at Uncle Yi's, he took great care of me. But now is not the time to talk about that, let's talk about what you were just discussing. Yu Xiaogang heard the intent to change the subject in Yu Yuanzhen's words, but today he was going to make this matter clear. Xiaogang, you don't need to worry about these things, I'm here. I am a titled Douluo, how could I not be able to solve the problem of a child's cultivation resources? Rest assured, go somewhere else for now, and I'll call you once I've finished discussing with the elders. Yu Yuanzhen said. It was not hard to tell from his tone that he did not want Yu Xiaogang to participate in the discussion with the elders. Why should he avoid it? Wouldn't it be better to let him join the discussion on the spot? However, as soon as Yu Yuanzhen's voice fell, the second elder of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect spoke up. Yu Xiaogang, originally, as the son of the sect master, we shouldn't speak to you like this, but the Douluo continent is a world that values strength. Here, strength is the foundation for everyone's standing, and this point is even more strict within the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect, one of the upper 3 sects. Those without talent who cannot become strong experts should peacefully be ordinary clansmen, managing the family's businesses and making contributions. Perhaps you feel dissatisfied with our arguing with your father. But as elders of the family, we have the right to advise the sect master. Having said this, the second elder glanced at the grim-faced Yu Yuanzhen and then continued. Your father, as the sect master, is the only titled Douluo of our Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect. He possesses great power. This is what he deserves as the strongest member of the family and as a titled Douluo. What should be his, we are even willing to give him in excess. But your father now wants to apply for resource treatment for you that only the geniuses of the family can enjoy. I will ask only one question, are you a genius? Yu Xiaogang did not reply. If he were a genius, he wouldn't have to struggle to find a way to change his heaven-defying fate. It seems you have self-awareness. You are not a genius. In fact, your talent is extremely poor. If someone like you were to enjoy the treatment only meant for the family's geniuses, many within the family would likely be dissatisfied. Therefore, even though your father personally applied to the family, we did not agree. Because these things are what he is asking for on your behalf, not what you have earned. Now, can you understand all this? The second elder's words were already quite polite. At least Yu Xiaogang could hear a matter-of-fact attitude in his tone. HMPH, why tell him so much? If he really had self-awareness, he should have told the sect master clearly long ago. That way, the sect master wouldn't have needed to apply to us. The third elder beside the second elder snorted coldly and said, Kid, if you still care about your own face and your father's face, you'd better make it clear to your father now. Don't wait until your father forces through the application against our opposition, only for the people of the sect to gossip about him. The continuous stream of words was all aimed at making Yu Xiaogang explain things to Yu Yuanzhen, so that he would stop applying for resources for a waste like himself. To be honest, knowing that his father was helping him apply for resources, Yu Xiaogang was quite moved. Since he wanted to cultivate, his father helped him apply for resources, even though his talent was poor. Elders, I understand everything you've said. Yu Xiaogang looked around at the elders in the room, his expression calm and composed. But regarding the genius treatment my father mentioned, I still intend to apply for it. In fact, I want even better treatment. When Yu Xiaogang said the first half of his sentence, the elders all began to smile, but as he finished the second half, everyone frowned simultaneously. You still want to apply, even for something better? Do you completely disregard your father's face? The Grand Elder of the Blue Lightning Tyrant Dragon sect looked indignant, somewhat angered by Yu Xiaogang's lack of sense. The second elder had clearly explained everything just now, yet Yu Xiaogang still wanted to apply. How thick-skinned could he be? Who said I don't care about my father's face? On the contrary, I care about my father's face more than you do. It's just that for the application I'm talking about, there's no need for my father to apply, it's enough for me to apply myself. Yu Xiaogang stood tall. His mere 6-year-old body exuded an aura that was not at all inferior to that of an adult. Hearing Yu Xiaogang's words, the elders looked at each other, and finally it was the second elder who spoke first. Tell us, what do you have to use for your application? Looking at Yu Xiaogang's confident expression, the second elder couldn't help but feel a bit of interest. A person with an innate soul power of level 1, wanting to apply for treatment that only the family's geniuses or experts could enjoy. In any power, such a thing would only be treated as a joke. The second elder couldn't imagine what reason a 6-year-old child like Yu Xiaogang could produce to convince them. The reason is right here, you'll know after you've seen it. Yu Xiaogang took out the experimental data stored in his storage soul tool and placed it on the table in the center of the room. Xiaogang, what is this? Seeing the thick stack of data Yu Xiaogang had taken out, Yu Yuanzhen stepped forward curiously. If anyone was currently most curious about Yu Xiaogang's reason for convincing the crow, don't forget to like, comment, subscribers, and share to AI Otaku Studio. Crowd, it was certainly his father. After all, he and Yu Xiaogang had only been apart for a few days. In just a few days, what could his son have possibly obtained? He, father, you'll know once you've read it. Yu Xiaogang grinned and kept them in suspense. What would be the fun in saying it now? So mysterious. Carrying their curiosity, Yu Yuanzhen and the group of elders began to browse the experimental records. This is... Halfway through, the second elder raised his head with an excited expression, wanting to question Yu Xiaogang, but was stopped by the Grand Elder. Read first, read first. Taking a deep breath, the Grand Elder's expression was equally excited. As the pages were constantly turned, the faces of the group became increasingly flushed. Reaching the final page, when everyone saw that Wang Dachui had successfully absorbed a 550-year spirit ring. Bang! A palm slammed onto the table, and the tabletop instantly cracked with numerous fissures. And the owner of that palm, the red-faced Yu Yuanzhen, was looking at Yu Xiaogang with a face full of pride. Ha ha ha, good, excellent, Xiaogang, you truly are worthy of being my Yu Yuanzhen's son. That's it for today's chapter. If you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe to AI Otaku Studio for more stories. Check out my other channel, Infinite Novel Audio, and I'll see you in the next chapter.